Did you know this entire video is meant to be a quiet walk through the Kanto region? A calm, unbroken reading of every single Pokédex entry from Bulbasaur all the way to Mew, designed so players can rest, unwind, and gently fall asleep, while the details of each Pokémon drift by like a slow dream. Instead of sudden cuts or loud reactions, everything here moves at a steady story-like pace, as if someone were reading a long old book in a dim room while the night settles outside. The journey will move in order through the Kanto Pokédex, but it will also feel like traveling across the region itself, grouping Pokémon by their natural habitats and evolution lines. So listeners drift from the grassy routes near Pallet Town into quiet forests filled with Caterpie and Pidgey, then onward toward rocky caves, misty mountains, and finally, the distant sea, where Lapras and other gentle swimmers pass through the waves. Starters will grow into their evolutions. Early route Pokémon will appear like harmless wildlife on the roadside. And later, legendary birds such as Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres will be framed as distant forces of nature, more like falling snow, far-off thunder, and warm embers than sudden threats. For every entry, players will first hear the name, spoken slowly and clearly, followed by its Pokédex classification, and then its type or types, so there is always a small moment of structure before the softer details begin. After that, the description will stretch out into a calm summary of appearance, behavior, and habitat, almost like watching a nature documentary in slow motion, with colors, shapes, and movements described in a way that feels distant and safe. In the beginning, there was simply Bulbasaur, the seed Pokémon, resting in the grass just outside Pallet Town. In the imagination of anyone staring at that title screen just a little too long, Bulbasaur is small and low to the ground, a gentle shape with wide eyes and a rounded body, carrying a single plant bulb on its back, like a promise that has not bloomed yet. And if players picture it lying in a quiet field, they can almost feel the warmth of the morning sun slowly soaking into those leaves. Some claimed that if Bulbasaur stayed still long enough, the bulb would open by itself. But in truth, it only swells and strengthens as Bulbasaur grows, the way a secret takes shape over time. Its breathing would be slow and even, a soft rise and fall beneath the bulb, while the faint scent of damp earth and leaves hangs in the air around it. As Bulbasaur spends more days basking in the light, it changes, and Ivysaur appears as a slightly larger, more grounded partner, its legs sturdier, its gaze a little more focused, the bud on its back pushing upward, as if drawn by the sky. According to some early descriptions, Ivysaur's bud becomes heavier as it gathers sunlight, and players could imagine it preferring to stay in one spot, settled in a sunlit clearing where the soil is warm and the breeze moves slowly through the grass. Each breath is deeper now, each exhale carrying the faint rustle of leaves, and when Ivysaur shifts its weight, the bud sways with a quiet creak, like a door in a house that no one has walked through for years. Eventually, that quiet tension resolves, and Ivysaur's bud opens into the full bloom of Venusaur, a calm, powerful presence that feels less like a single Pokémon and more like a moving island of petals and shade. Did you know some early fans said Venusaur's flower could lull other Pokémon to sleep just by its scent? A rumor that fits the way its Pokédex entries describe the soothing aroma it releases? The broad leaves on its back catch the sun and hold it like a blanket, while the heavy flower slowly breathes out a sweet, dense fragrance that settles over a clearing and makes everything feel slower, heavier, and very far away. In that imagined clearing, Venusaur hardly needs to move, its massive body resting in the grass, eyes half closed, the flower's petals shifting only when a breeze passes through, creating a low, steady rustle that blends with its measured breathing. Now, one common rumor is that if players waited long enough beside a Venusaur in certain spin-off games, hidden Pokémon would emerge from beneath its leaves, though this was easily debunked, and no such secret event exists in the data. Although the rumors are false, the image remains strangely fitting, because this whole evolution line feels like quiet growth and transformation. From a small seedling in the grass to a living, breathing garden. These first three forms set the pattern for what comes next in this journey, where each evolution line will tell its own sleepy little story. And as the fire and water starters wait just off-screen for their turn, the gentle weight of leaves and sunlight lingers a moment longer before the scene slowly turns toward a small, flickering flame. As that last petal of Venusaur's flower closes and the imagined garden grows quiet, the scene shifts from green to orange, and a small point of light appears in the darkness, like a candle just lit at the far end of a hallway, guiding tired players forward without any rush at all. Charmander, the lizard Pokémon, is small enough to sit at the edge of a pillow, its smooth scales warmed by a tiny, steady flame at the tip of its tail, a flame that glows softly, the way a nightlight does in the corner of a bedroom when everything else has gone silent. In the games, the Pokédex often links its life force directly to that tailfire, but here it feels less like a warning and more like a gentle indicator, a little mood light that brightens when it stretches, or yawns and dims again when it settles down. With each slow breath, the flame flickers in a controlled rhythm, casting faint moving shadows on the walls, and players could imagine that if rain tapped softly against the window, it would simply curl closer to the warmth, shielding that glow the way someone might pull a blanket over their shoulders. Did you know some claimed that Charmander's flame would go out if it ever truly relaxed, as if sleep itself was dangerous? However, this was easily debunked by the way its animations and later Pokédex lines show it dozing peacefully, tail still shining, like an ember that refuses to die even in the calmest hours of the night. According to some early guidebook wording, the flame flares when its emotions rise, but in a quiet room, those emotions are slow and low, a soft pulse of light instead of a burst of fire. As levels rise and time passes, that small lizard becomes Charmeleon, a more confident and sharper-edged form, the flame Pokémon. Yet even this Pokémon can be imagined in a resting state, claws tucked close, as it leans against a warm rock that still holds the last memory of the day's sun. The tail flame here is thicker, richer in color, but it does not need to roar. It sways slowly, like a campfire ember in the evening, the kind players stare into without speaking, watching sparks drift up and vanish into the air. One common rumor is that Charmeleon could not ever be calm, that it would always be on edge, always ready to fight. Though the quieter Pokédex lines hint that in familiar territory, with no challengers nearby, it simply curls around its own warmth and lets the heat of its tail keep the night at bay. From there, the shape stretches and the wings unfold into Charizard, a Pokémon that many remember as a roaring dragon, dominating box art and playground stories. Yet in this slow retelling, it becomes something different. A large, warm creature, gliding silently through the night sky, far above quiet towns where windows glow and streetlights hum. Its wings beat in a slow, rhythmic pattern, not rushing toward battle, but tracing lazy circles over forests and rivers, the orange of its body blending with the last traces of sunset. and then with the dim glow of distant city lights. The fire at the end of its tail burns brighter than before, yet at this height, it feels like a distant star, a moving constellation that only the most patient stargazers might notice, passing unannounced from horizon to horizon. Some claim that Charizard's flames could melt anything, that it would scorch entire fields just by passing overhead. This rumor likely stems from dramatic anime scenes and Pokédex phrases chosen to excite rather than to soothe. But in a world meant for sleep, the same power becomes a source of comfort. Instead, a guarantee that cold air and creeping shadows cannot quite reach the places its warmth touches. Even the idea of its fire breath, usually framed as destructive, can be softened into an image of it, exhaling over volcanic rocks and mountain springs, keeping them pleasantly warm through the chill hours before dawn. Another rumor said that fire-type Pokémon could never be truly gentle, that their designs and attacks locked them into roles of aggression. Although the rumors are false when players look more closely at the quieter entries and the way many of them are shown tending nests, guarding eggs, or simply resting beside hot springs. In that sense, Charmander, Charmeleon, and Charizard become the first hints of a pattern that will appear again and again as the Pokédex continues, where even the most intense flames can be reframed as hearth fires and lanterns instead of weapons. Later fire types, including legendary Pokémon that some described as terrifying or unstoppable, will also be seen through this softened lens, their blazing wings and burning manes reimagined as moving sources of warmth and guidance, like traveling campfires in the sky. It raises a quiet question. If a Charizard can be this calm, gliding like a silent guardian over sleeping towns, what does that mean for the even stranger shapes waiting deeper in Kanto? The ghosts and psychic types and man-made Pokémon that once fueled so many rumors in the early days. Before those appear, though, the journey drifts back down from the clouds toward the shoreline, where another trio of starters waits, not with flames, but with ripples of water, and the soft, steady sound of waves against stone. That shoreline feels close enough to touch now, and the sound that meets players there is not crackling fire or rushing wind, but the slow, even rhythm of water. As the first water-type starter of Kanto drifts into view, Squirtle, the tiny turtle Pokémon, is small enough that the surface of a pond can almost cradle it, a rounded shell bobbing gently among the ripples near Pallet Town and the early paths of Route 1. Squirtle's shell is more than armor. It is a quiet hiding place, a little portable cave that it can slip into at any moment, pulling in its head and limbs until only that smooth curve remains, rocking with the faintest motion of the water. Did you know some claimed that if players waited long enough beside a still pool, a hidden Squirtle would surface only when the in-game music looped, as if answering a secret signal from beneath the waves, though nothing in the code ever supported that. In the dark, the reflection of a crescent moon bends around its shell, and the waterline traces a soft ring of light, so that Squirtle seems to float between two skies. As it grows, the line shifts from tiny and round to something a little longer, a little more ancient, and Wartortle appears at the edge of the same pond, now large enough to climb onto the flat stones that frame the water. Its tail and ears, fluffed into pale, cloud-like shapes, move slowly in the night breeze, and the fur catches stray droplets, so each strand glints like a small, moving star when the moonlight hits. According to some early Pokédex-style descriptions, Wartortle is said to live for a very long time, and that long life fits the way it rests, settled on a rock while the current drifts past, watching the surface without hurry. The quiet lapping of waves against stone becomes a kind of metronome here, steady and patient, and players could imagine the soft brush of damp moss under Wartortle's feet, the cool air rising off the water, and the way sound dulls when the world is wrapped in mist. One common rumor is that Wartortle's fluffy tail was a sign of a hidden evolution, a lost branch that never appeared. However, this was easily debunked by official guides that only ever listed the same final form, waiting at the end of its growth. That final form, Blastoise, changes the scale of the scene without disturbing its calm. Where Squirtle only needed a pond, Blastoise can turn a whole stretch of shoreline into its resting place. Its shell so broad and solid that it resembles a small island rising from the shallows, the kind of shape that wild Tentacool might mistake for a rock. The twin cannons on its back, so violent in battle, can be imagined here as quiet fountains. In players' minds, they do not fire. They only release thin streams of water that arc gently back into the lake, adding 2 more soft splashes to the night. The feeling of weightlessness that comes from floating, of muscles unclenching as the body surrenders to the water, mirrors the way Blastoise seems to carry an entire world of stillness on its back. Its heavy steps, when it does move, send slow waves rolling outward, and those waves spread in rings until they fade into nothing, like thoughts that dissolve before sleep. Some claimed that if a player circled a resting Blastoise enough times, pressing against every tile of its imagined island, a hidden encounter would trigger in the surrounding water. But although the rumors are false, the mental picture of that enormous guardian, half submerged and unmoving, remains strangely comforting. Around these 3 water types, the surface of Kanto becomes a mirror, catching the pale light of the sky and returning it in broken fragments on every ripple, and the region feels smaller and safer when framed by their shells. From Bulbasaur's leaves to Charizard's wings, and now to Blastoise's island-like shell, the starter lines form a kind of triangle around Pallet Town, a protective ring of familiar shapes and colors that many players carry in their memory. Once those guardians are in place, the routes that lead away from town seem a little less unknown, and the thought of stepping into the grass is calmer. From here, the journey drifts away from the structured choice of starters and out into the wild roots of Kanto, where there are no gift Pokeballs waiting, only the quiet lives of common forest Pokemon that rustle in the leaves and watch from the undergrowth. The path north of Pallet bends toward Viridian, and then Viridian Forest, and the next shapes in the darkness are smaller and more numerous. The kinds of Pokemon that many players met before any gym leader's badge. Their stories are simpler, but the woods around them have their own kind of hush, and that is where the Pokédex will wander next. From that bend in the road, the trees grow closer together, and the path into Viridian Forest feels narrower, quieter, as if the whole route is asking players to lower their voices and listen for smaller sounds, softer movements, details that could be missed if someone rushed through. In that dim green light, Caterpie appears first, a tiny, harmless caterpillar Pokemon, inching along bark and branches, its round segments rising and falling in the same slow pattern over and over again, like a living metronome in the leaves. Caterpie, the worm Pokemon, is one of the earliest shapes many players remember meeting. And did you know its whole design was meant to feel like something that could exist just outside a bedroom window or on a garden wall? Not like a monster at all. Its antennae gently flex, its small feet grip the wood, and it inches forward, pauses, and inches again, repeating this motion in a way that becomes almost hypnotic if someone imagines watching it for more than a moment. According to some early strategy guides, Caterpie was recommended for quick experience and fast evolution, but in a quiet read of the Pokédex, it becomes more like a symbol of simple, patient progress. Never in a hurry, never alarming, just moving along its branch. Then the forest becomes even stiller, because Metapod hangs there, motionless, a cocoon caught between one stage and the next. Its shell is hard, its expression fixed, and it does almost nothing, which in this kind of calm narration turns into the perfect image of rest and waiting. A Pokémon whose entire existence is about staying still and enduring time. Many players joked about Metapod only knowing Harden, repeating the same move without end. And this rumor likely stems from how often that animation played in early battles. But here, that repetition feels like a soft mantra, a reminder that not every moment in Kanto has to be about action. Although the rumors are false that Metapod hides some secret attack if trained in a special part of Viridian Forest, the idea of a hidden power sleeping inside this quiet shell fits the mood of the woods at night. Everything is paused, held in place, resting before the next change. From Caterpie's steady crawling to Metapod's complete stillness, the line already traces a path from wakefulness into something slower and more distant. The way listeners might feel their own thoughts begin to settle. When Metapod finally changes, the forest opens into light, and Butterfree drifts out, a delicate butterfly Pokémon whose wings beat in slow, even strokes that push it gently through the morning air. It hovers over flowers at the edge of the path, carrying pollen and fine spores, and each flap seems unhurried, as if the whole sky has adopted the forest's quiet pace. Some claimed Butterfree's powders were dangerous or mysterious, but in many Pokédex descriptions, they are described as tools for gathering nectar, for living among blossoms and soft breezes, rather than in battles. From crawling to stillness to gentle flight. No, this small evolution line mirrors the way a listener could move from alertness to rest to dreams, following the same calm arc that early route bug types have traced since the first Game Boy screens. One common rumor is that these simple Pokémon hide deeper secrets. But in truth, many early Kanto designs were created to feel familiar and non-threatening, like the everyday insects and birds someone might glimpse on a quiet walk near home. The Pokédex will not stay in Viridian Forest forever, though, and just beyond the last patch of tall grass, another set of wings and eyes is waiting in the branches, ready to change the mood of the path again. Just beyond those first fluttering wings, the forest shifts only slightly, and players step from Caterpie's soft green world into the parallel line of tiny, careful shapes hiding closer to the soil, where another set of forest companions is waiting among the roots and fallen leaves. Here, the Pokédex turns to Weedle, a small, segmented bug and poison-type Pokémon, whose rounded body and tiny pointed stinger might sound dangerous on paper. Yet in practice, it spends most of its time with its head buried in leaves, more interested in nibbling than in picking fights. Weedle is usually described as living in the underbrush, moving slowly through the shaded edges of Viridian Forest and similar roots, its nose always searching for the right kind of foliage, and its bright little body acting almost like a warning bead among the moss and twigs. Some claimed that encountering a Weedle meant players should be on high alert because of its venom. But did you know that in most Pokédex descriptions, the emphasis stays on its diet and its habit of quietly chewing through leaves, as if its whole routine is just eating, resting, and avoiding anything larger that rustles nearby. Even its stinger, while sharp, can be imagined here as something it carries for reassurance rather than aggression, a small needle of safety tucked at the end of a very small life. When Weedle has eaten its fill, and the time to change arrives, it becomes Kakuna, another cocoon form that mirrors Metapod, yet feels slightly more secretive, often pictured clinging to tree trunks instead of lying in the open. Kakuna hang in groups, motionless, clustered together like pale, sleeping ornaments on the bark. And according to some entries, they barely move at all, conserving every bit of energy for the transformation waiting inside. In a quiet forest at dusk, a row of Kakuna could almost be mistaken for knots in the wood, each one holding a drowsy heartbeat and a future pair of wings, all of them sharing the same patient silence. From Kakuna emerges Beedrill, a Pokémon that many remember as fierce, territorial, and quick to swarm. Yet in this early root context, it can be softened into something more like a watchful spirit of the trees. Instead of darting attacks, imagine Beedrill flying in slow, looping patrols along the forest edge, tracing the same invisible paths every evening, checking on Weedle in the grass and Kakuna on the trunks, circling like a guardian that would rather warn than strike. One common rumor is that Beedrill would always chase players the moment they stepped onto its route, but this rumor likely stems from its aggressive reputation in the anime and battle-focused media. In a calm reading of the Pokédex, nothing forces it to be anything other than a cautious protector of its nest. Side by side, Caterpie's gentle green line and Weedle's slightly sharper, yellow and brown line show how the same forest can hold many small lives at once, each following its own quiet rhythm. One family wrapping itself in silk, another sealing itself in a shell, both emerging as winged shapes that share the same canopy without needing to clash. Early Kanto roots are filled with this kind of soft contrast, where even a poisonous stinger or a drill-like arm can be recast as part of a natural pattern, repeating day after day while players pass through only briefly. Although the rumors are false that every bug type in Kanto hides some terrifying secret, deeper in the region, the Pokédex will begin to whisper about more unsettling habits and stranger habitats, where caves echo and abandoned buildings creak. For now, though, the path remains a safe, sleepy place, framed by Caterpie and Weedle, Metapod and Kakuna, Butterfree and Beedrill, all sharing the same cool air as the route slowly opens toward the next, slightly darker stretch of Kanto's map. As the path leaves the thicker trees and the shadows of the forest begin to thin, the sound of rustling leaves slowly gives way to something lighter. A soft stirring of wings and the faintest cooing call drifting over the dirt road, as if the region itself is taking a quiet breath. So it is here that players start to notice that the sky above Kanto is not empty at all, but gently stitched together by familiar shapes gliding from root to root. Pidgey, the tiny bird Pokémon, is usually the first of these shapes that the Pokédex will mention, a small brown body with simple markings that almost blend into the dusty ground it prefers. It pecks at the soil along the edges of early roots, turning over tiny stones in search of seeds. And when startled, it does not explode into the air in a panic, but instead flutters up in short, soft bursts of wings, rising just high enough to be safe before settling again in a nearby patch of grass. Did you know? Some claim that if players walked slowly enough, matching its pace step for step, Pidgey would never fly away at all, simply continuing its quiet search as if sharing the path. As the journey carries on and the roots open into broader fields, that same small silhouette gradually shifts into something more defined, and Pidgeotto begins to circle lazily over the open spaces. Its wings are broader, its movements more graceful, and according to some early descriptions, its eyesight is sharp enough to track even the smallest motion in the grass far below. Yet it rarely dives in a hurry, preferring to ride gentle air currents in looping patterns that repeat over and over. like a living mobile turning slowly above Kanto. One common rumor is that these wide circles marked hidden nests or items on the ground, but this was never confirmed in any Pokédex entry, leaving only the image of a patient hunter tracing invisible paths in the sky. Higher still, almost a suggestion against the pale blue, Pidgeot glides with a calm that feels closer to a legend than to everyday wildlife. Long crest feathers trailing behind it as it crosses entire routes without seeming to flap at all. Its presence is majestic, yet not threatening, like a guardian that chooses to watch rather than intervene. And the air around it seems quieter, as if the region is listening. Another rumor said that if a player waited at dawn on certain routes, a single Pidgeot would pass overhead at exactly the same time every day. But although the rumors are false in terms of mechanics, the image remains strangely soothing. Together, these three bird Pokémon make Kanto feel quietly occupied, filling the background with a kind of distant bird song that players might imagine hearing through an open window on a still morning. When towns are not yet busy and the routes are almost empty, their wings connect forest and field, town and road, and they hint that every stretch of the map, from bright paths to darker caves and lonely shores, holds its own small population of Pokémon living out slow, unnoticed routines. In the next parts of the Pokédex, that idea will deepen as the focus drifts from the open sky down into burrows, tunnels, and waves, where other shapes move just as quietly beneath the surface. From that wide view of flocks and fields, the focus shifts down toward the edges of the road, where smaller shapes move in the half-light, and where most players first notice that Kanto has its own kind of everyday wildlife. Here, just beyond the white fences of Pallet Town and along the early routes, Rattata appears as a small, purple rodent Pokémon, slipping between tufts of grass and fence posts, whiskers twitching as it searches for seeds, dropped berries, and crumbs left behind by travelers. Did you know it? In many Pokédex entries, Rattata is described as the sort of Pokémon that can live almost anywhere people do, from quiet country paths to the corners of busy cities. As long as there is food to be found and a place to hide. Some claimed this made it feel less like a rare catch and more like a shared background presence. The kind of Pokémon that would be there whether players paid attention or not, watching from the side of the road or darting out of sight when footsteps grew close. Its teeth and claws are mentioned, but mostly in the context of nibbling, gnawing, and scraping, more fidgety than frightening. Because of that, then the soundscape around Rattata becomes part of Kanto's bedtime atmosphere, with soft rustling in the tall grass, tiny feet pattering across packed dirt, and the faint scratch of claws on wooden planks near houses and small bridges. One common rumor is that if players stood still long enough on an early route at night in certain games, they could hear extra hidden sound effects, as if unseen Rattata were moving just off-screen, though this was false and came more from imagination than from code. As Rattata grows, the line shifts into Raticate, a larger, more robust Pokémon, whose body and thick whiskers give it a heavier, grounded presence, and whose powerful front teeth are said to never stop growing. According to some in-game descriptions, it spends much of its time gnawing on tough plants, stones, and even wooden beams, known not out of aggression, but as a kind of constant maintenance, and that detail creates a different layer of nighttime noise. Instead of quick scurries, players can picture slow, steady chewing somewhere under a floorboard, or in the dark underside of a bridge, heard more than seen. Those quiet scratching sounds, the muted thump of something small moving inside a wall, and the suggestion of tiny eyes watching from cracks and gaps, all build a gentle, slightly eerie, but still safe feeling, like the world is alive just beyond the lantern light, yet not truly threatening. Another rumor said that Raticate could quietly chew its way into hidden rooms behind certain buildings if brought there at night, opening up secret encounters. However, this was easily debunked by players who checked every wall and found nothing waiting on the other side. As the routes stretch farther from Pallet Town, and those familiar purple shapes fade into the background of new areas, the Pokémon encountered will slowly grow stranger and more mysterious, as if the region itself is drifting from the ordinary into the dreamlike. In the next entries, the sense of something moving just out of sight will remain, but it will belong to different silhouettes and different sounds, guiding players a little deeper into Kanto's quieter, sleepier corners. As those shapes in the tall grass fade and the sounds of wings and tiny paws become quieter, players eventually notice a different kind of glow in the dark, a gentle, pulsing brightness that does not quite belong to moonlight or fire. In Kanto's softer hours, this is where the electric Pokémon begin to appear, not as violent storms or crashing bolts, but as small, contained sparks that feel closer to static on a blanket than to real thunder. Pikachu, the mouse Pokémon, is one of the first of these, a small yellow figure moving between the roots of trees and the edges of grassy clearings. Its fur described as short, but easy to imagine as slightly fluffy and warm against a sleeve. Its electricity builds quietly under the skin. And did you know? The Pokédex says it stores that power in its cheeks, which players can picture as a faint, cozy glow, like a nightlight hidden just beneath the surface. When Pikachu shifts or flicks its ears, there is a soft crackle, the kind of tiny shock many have felt when touching a doorknob. In winter, surprising for a moment, but gone before it can become anything more than a tingle. According to some early descriptions, wild Pikachu gather in small groups in forests, especially when the air is dry, sharing their stored power with one another through little arcs that pass from cheek to cheek, lighting the undergrowth with a dim, flickering haze. In the games, players encounter them in patches of grass, but it is easy to imagine them slipping closer to campsites, drawn by the warmth, resting near logs and backpacks, while their tails make slow, lazy movements through the air. One common rumor is that a sleeping Pikachu could accidentally shock its trainer awake during the night, though this is more of a playful warning than a real danger. And in practice, the image that remains is of a Pokémon that hums quietly with energy while doing its best to stay calm. Many players picture Pikachu perched on a trainer's shoulder as the party walks down a dark route, the only light coming from the tail flame of a distant Charmander and the low orange circle of a campfire ahead. Another rumor said that if Pikachu stayed on that shoulder long enough, its static would slowly charge the Pokégear or the Pokédex itself. But however, this was easily debunked. The thought of a living battery dozing against a scarf or jacket adds to the feeling of traveling with a small living lantern in a Poké Center room. Pikachu might curl at the foot of the bed while that familiar, distant healing music repeats softly, each note blending with the faint buzz in the air until both sound and electricity feel like the same slow rhythm. Raichu, the evolved form, carries that same power in a heavier, more settled body. Its tail stretched long behind it, like a careful wire leading away from the rest of its form. The Pokédex mentions that it can release over 10 times the electricity of Pikachu. But in these quieter moments, the important detail is how that long tail acts almost like a safe lightning rod, planted into the soil as Raichu sleeps, sending any excess charge harmlessly down into the earth. players can imagine a Raichu lying on warm ground near a campsite, tail tip gently embedded in the dirt, cheeks dimly lit, the occasional spark disappearing into the soil with a faint crackling sigh. In towns and along routes, streetlights and house lamps make Raichu and Pikachu's glow less obvious. But out beyond the last building, where the path narrows and the sound of the wind grows louder, those gentle sparks stand out against the dark. Although the rumors are false that these early electric types could call down real storms on command, their presence still hints at something larger, waiting further along the Pokédex, where electricity will no longer be confined to cheeks and tails, but will run through power plants, radio towers, and the clouds themselves, as if the night sky over Kanto is holding back a different kind of energy that has not quite revealed its shape yet. As that distant electricity fades back into the clouds over Kanto, the light in the sky seems to dim, and attention drifts down toward the ground itself, where stone, sand, and soil hold a different kind of quiet. Did you know that among the earliest ground-type Pokémon in the region, Sandshrew and Sandslash are described in the Pokédex as creatures that almost disappear into this stillness, choosing safety not through speed or spectacle, but through burrows, dry air, and the simple act of curling up and going to sleep. Sandshrew, the mouse Pokémon, is small and armadillo-like, with that familiar pattern of scales that looks like carefully stacked bricks of pale earth. And many entries explain that it can curl into a tight ball, tucking its head and limbs away, until it resembles a smooth stone that has been sitting in the desert for years. Players are told that it digs deep underground burrows, where the air stays cool and dry, even when the surface is harsh. And it is easy to imagine a network of tunnels under Route 4, or the rocky edges near Pewter City, with Sandshrew resting motionless in the dark, breathing slowly, while sand trickles faintly from the ceiling. According to some descriptions, Sandshrew avoids water so carefully that it will roll itself into that ball and simply wait out rainstorms, preferring deserts and arid fields where moisture cannot reach it. And this creates a strangely peaceful image when paired with Kanto's night sky. The Pokédex mentions that it prefers dry, sandy places, and players could picture a wide, empty desert under distant stars, the kind of place where the wind has already blown away every footprint, leaving only faint mounds that hide sleeping Pokémon, each Sandshrew tucked away, untouched by the chill that settles on the surface after the sun goes down. When Sandshrew evolves into Sandslash, the shape becomes more rugged and spiny, with long claws and sharp quills that look built for harsh battles, though the same world that made those defenses also offers quiet places to rest. Many entries focus on its ability to slash with great force, yet nothing in those lines prevents a softer reading. Sandslash, with its claws gently folded in, back pressed against a sun-warmed rock that still holds the day's heat, its spines rising and falling almost imperceptibly as it sleeps. Some claimed that a startled Sandslash would explode from the sand in an instant, but in this slower view, it is already settled, half buried at the base of a dune, the surrounding desert so silent that even its breathing feels like part of the landscape. The feel of sand underfoot in these areas is different from the grass and stone of earlier routes. It shifts and sighs quietly, and if players imagine stepping carefully, each footfall would be muffled, as if the ground itself is asking for whispers. Underground, the sound fades even further, until only the faint scrape of claws on packed soil remains, and then even that disappears once the burrow Pokémon have curled up to sleep, turning the tunnels into long, cool corridors of still air and steady hidden heartbeats. In that kind of silence, the idea of rumor and spectacle feels distant, and instead, the region becomes a patchwork of resting places, from nests in trees to dens in caves, and these sandy hideaways beneath the roots. One common rumor is that only the flashier Pokémon ever truly mattered, but the Pokédex quietly contradicts this by showing how every species, even the smallest ground type, curled in the dark, has its own way of surviving the night. As players continue across Kanto, more of these patterns appear, and the journey becomes less about battles and more about how each Pokémon has found a particular corner of the world where it can finally feel safe enough to close its eyes. Moving onward from the deserts and dry fields, the paths will lead back toward grasslands, caves, and even stranger habitats, where different bodies and elements create their own versions of rest, and where the idea of sleep can mean floating, hibernating, or simply standing perfectly still until morning. From those dry fields and resting shapes, the path bends gently back into cooler air, and before long, players reach the shadow of Mount Moon, where the idea of sleep feels different again, closer to a quiet ritual than simple rest. Inside and around this mountain, certain Pokémon do not just lie down and drift off. They seem to treat the night itself as something sacred, moving in patterns that almost resemble a ceremony. This is where Clefairy first appears, a small, round pink Pokémon with soft ears and a curl of fur that looks as if it has been brushed by moonlight, rather than by hands. In the games, Clefairy is often found in groups. And did you know many descriptions say that these groups gather under the full moon, standing in simple circles, gently clapping their hands and swaying from side to side. The motion is slow and repetitive, and the sound is described as light and muffled, as if the stone around them is absorbing every sharp edge, turning it into something that could lull even restless players towards sleep. According to some early Pokédex entries, Clefairy might not be entirely of this world, as several lines hint that it arrived on a meteorite, or that it comes out to dance only when the moon is bright enough to remind it of a distant home. Some claimed this meant Clefairy was a true visitor from the moon, a tiny traveler that had stepped down from the sky and simply decided to stay. Although the rumors are false in the strictest scientific sense, the games never fully deny that otherworldly feeling, and Mount Moon itself, with its name and its strange stones, keeps that idea gently alive every time players walk through it. When Clefairy evolves, it becomes Clefable, taller and more graceful, with longer wings and a silhouette that looks almost like a guardian spirit watching the cave mouth. One common rumor is that Clefable can sense the presence of humans long before it is seen, and that it will quietly step back into deeper tunnels the moment footsteps echo too loudly. The official descriptions call it shy and easily startled, and the image that forms is of a Pokémon that prefers to be a distant outline at the edge of vision, padding away on light feet whenever attention grows too bright. At night, Mount Moon itself feels like part of their body, or at least part of their dream. The blue light from the entrance fades into a dim wash along the walls, the only other brightness coming from scattered moonstones and the occasional flicker of a Zubat's wings. Somewhere deeper in the cavern, water drips at a slow, even pace, and between those drops, players can almost imagine the soft patter of Clefairy footsteps on stone, a faint, rhythmic tap that never fully resolves into a clear sound. Another rumor said that if players stood still long enough and did not press any buttons, the Clefairy dance would continue forever. Like a looped dream, the cartridge did not know how to end. However, this was easily debunked by anyone who tested the game's idle behavior. As the cave quiets and the idea of Pokémon from the moon settles in, this gentle eeriness begins to prepare the way for something else. Because soon the region will introduce psychic and ghost Pokémon, whose designs lean even further into the strange. For now, though, Mount Moon remains a soft threshold, a place where the world of Kanto and the suggestion of outer space overlap, just enough to let players drift between them without quite noticing when one gives way to the other. From that soft threshold between earth and sky, players eventually step back into quieter roots, and the region begins to trade meteor showers and strange stones for something smaller, warmer, and closer to the ground, in the shape of a small fox Pokémon whose presence feels like a campfire at the edge of night. Vulpix, the fox Pokémon, is not loud or imposing, and its Pokédex entries describe a gentle creature with a body temperature that always seems pleasantly warm, never harsh, like holding a mug of tea between both hands while the rest of the room cools around you. Its multiple soft tails, usually 6 in Kanto, curl in toward its body as it sleeps, each one folding over the others in slow motion, until it almost looks like a nest it has built out of its own fur. Some claimed that if players watched long enough in a dark cave or on a twilight route, each tail would give off a faint ember-like glow, as if tiny coals were buried inside, and the Pokédex's talk of internal flames made that image feel believable. According to some entries, those tails do not start out separate, and instead Vulpix is born with just one white tail that slowly splits as it grows, dividing into 2, then 3, then more, like a branch of a tree forming smaller and smaller twigs. Did you know? Many players quietly imagined this splitting happening over many peaceful nights. The change so gradual that Vulpix itself might not notice until it woke up one morning with a slightly heavier, softer plume behind it. One common rumor is that if a trainer counted the tails at exactly midnight, the number could predict how strong it would become, though this was easily debunked once players realized that the game does not track that kind of detail at all. As Vulpix matures, the Pokédex suggests that its power and mystique deepen, and eventually, that gentle ember-like presence is echoed and magnified in Ninetales, a long-lived, elegant fox Pokémon whose 9 flowing tails have inspired far more unsettling stories. In the games, Ninetales is often described as capable of casting a powerful curse on anyone who grabs one of its tails, and some claimed a trainer who did this would be followed across routes by strange, bad luck, like missed attacks and failed captures. Although the rumors are false in terms of actual game mechanics, the image of a pale fox watching silently from a hill at dusk stayed with many players. If you picture that scene, Ninetales stands on a low rise just outside a town, perhaps near Lavender's fields or the edges of Cinnabar's cooled ash. Its fur moving gently in the evening breeze, eyes half closed, as if listening to distant sounds only it can hear. The red of the sunset catches in its mane, each tail outlined in soft gold, and the world around it seems to hold its breath for a moment. Neither dangerous nor entirely ordinary, simply still. Another rumor said that Ninetales could understand human speech perfectly and remember grudges for 1,000 years. But over time, many players started to treat those lines as in-universe folklore, stories that trainers told each other around imaginary campfires. This rumor likely stems from the way the Pokédex mixes factual behavior with tall tales. And in a calm reading like this, those harsher elements soften into background legend, setting the stage for the stranger's psychic and ghost Pokémon that Kanto will introduce just beyond the next route. From those campfire stories under open skies, the path in Kanto soon narrows, and players step quietly into the mouth of a cave where the air is cooler. The light fades, and every sound seems to come back to meet them a moment later, softened by stone. Your footsteps become the main rhythm at first, a slow, careful pattern on the uneven ground, until the cave itself begins to answer, with gentle echoes and distant drips of water that could have been falling for years. In this darkness, Zubat appears as one of the first companions, a small bat Pokémon with no visible eyes at all, its face smooth where many expected pupils to glow. Instead, it relies on sound, sending out high, rapid cries that bounce off the walls, letting it map the tunnels in a way players can only imagine, while its thin wings beat in a soft, repetitive pattern overhead, like someone slowly fanning the air. Did you know some claimed that if players turned the game volume down low enough, Zubat encounters would somehow become less frequent, as though the Pokémon itself needed the sound to find the trainer? Though this was completely false and only reflected how persistent these encounters felt in long, winding caves. When Zubat evolves, the same shadows hold a larger shape, and Golbat takes its place on the Pokédex page. Golbat is often described hanging upside down from the cave ceiling, clinging to rock with strong feet, while its broad wings fold in around its body like a heavy blanket, shutting out what little light filters in from the entrance. According to some in-universe notes, it spends much of the day in this suspended sleep, only stirring when the cool air shifts, or a faint vibration passes through the stone, then opening its mouth in a wide, slow yawn before gliding off into the deeper dark. Below these hanging forms, the floor of the cave is scattered with what seem to be plain rocks, until the Pokédex quietly reveals that some of them are not rocks at all. Geodude rests motionless on the ground, its rough, rounded body and simple features blending into the rubble so completely that many trainers might walk past without noticing, unless it chooses to flex its stone arms. Graveler, larger and more uneven, can sit for long periods in the same position, as still as any boulder, so that a narrow path might be lined with living Pokémon that remain respectfully quiet as players pass. One common rumor is that if a trainer moved through a Kanto cave without running, only listening to the sound of their own steps and the occasional distant rustle of wings high above, hidden species would emerge from the walls, revealed only to those who treated the tunnels like a sacred place. This rumor likely stems from the way the games describe deeper levels and side chambers, hinting that beyond the reach of a first lantern or the glow of a screen, stranger Pokémon dwell where almost no one goes, turning the farthest corners of Kanto's caves into something closer to ghost stories told by tired hikers. As the Pokédex continues, those hints will lead into entries that feel even more like whispered legends, especially once the journey leaves the stone behind and moves toward the places where psychic types bend perception and ghost Pokémon blur the line between rumor and reality. After the echo of caves and the faint idea of hidden psychic and ghost Pokémon, the Pokédex quietly leads players back to the surface, into softer ground and slower movement, where the stories feel less like sharp legends and more like plants that only stir when the sun goes down. In this part of Kanto, the myths are not about sudden jump scares or haunted cartridges, but about things half buried, half awake, and only really alive when most trainers are already asleep. Oddish, the weed Pokémon, is a small round plant creature that almost seems designed to be overlooked. A blue body that spends the entire day buried in the soil with only its leaves showing, like a forgotten bulb tucked into a flower bed. Some claim that if players check the same patch of grass at the exact same time every night, they could see an Oddish slowly pulling itself free. but this rumor likely stems from how its entries mention that it prefers the cool darkness. At night, it quietly walks around, stubby feet padding over damp earth, leaving faint tracks as it searches for richer soil. And the idea of that slow, secret wandering gives the region a hushed, breathing feeling. Once the roots go dark, the air grows thicker around gloom. A Pokémon whose drooping flower and half-lidded eyes make it look as if it is always on the edge of sleep, swaying in place. Its Pokédex descriptions talk about a powerful smell. And did you know some early players said that the scent was so strong in universe that it could knock out other Pokémon nearby, even if no move was used? In this calm version of the story, though, that odor becomes a heavy, sweet perfume that fills the air of a nighttime garden, clinging to the mist that rises from watered soil. According to some, the darker corners of Kanto's roots would be lined with unseen gloom, dripping nectar and breathing out that strange aroma, turning the whole landscape into something slow and drowsy. Vileplume takes that feeling and enlarges it, a Pokémon defined by the huge, spotted flower resting on its body, petals so broad and weighty that every step seems deliberate. One common rumor is that its petals open only for hidden events. But however, this was easily debunked once players saw it animate in later games. In the imagination of a quiet Kanto night, those petals slowly open and close as it breathes, scattering pollen in a lazy drifting cloud that catches any stray moonlight, then falls back down like pale dust. The soft rustle of those petals, the almost imperceptible shuffle of oddish feet, and Gloom's sticky steps among roots and stems mixes with the feel of damp soil and cool night air, suggesting that even when players put the game down, this world keeps its own rhythm of sleeping and waking. As the Pokédex moves on from these rooted, nocturnal plants, that rhythm continues into other lines that only truly reveal themselves after dark, now edging the journey closer to the psychic distortions and ghostly shapes that make Kanto's nights feel like half-remembered dreams. From those rooted plants that wait for the night air to cool them, the Pokédex steps only a little higher off the ground, down to the forest floor itself, where Paris moves slowly through the dim mulch and shadows. In these quieter corners of Viridian Forest, where the canopy presses close and only thin strands of light reach the soil, this small, crab-like Pokémon can be found scraping gently at tree roots and fallen leaves, its tiny claws working almost in rhythm with the soft creak of branches overhead. Paris carries a pair of mushrooms on its back, bright against the brown of its shell, and the Pokédex notes that these spores guide much of its behavior, nudging it toward damp wood, decaying bark, and rich, dark earth. Did you know some claimed that these mushrooms were almost like a second mind, slowly learning the forest's patterns through the body of the host? The official entries describe how, over time, the fungus sends more and more threads through Paris's body, not in a sudden takeover, but in a gradual, patient spread, the way lichen will quietly paint old stone with pale colors over many seasons. According to some early guidebooks, players even said that Paris seemed more interested in feeding the mushrooms than itself, as if every scrap of leaf and every bite of root was simply fuel for the caps on its back. In the dimmest parts of the woods, where the air stays cool and still, you can imagine groups of Paras barely moving, just shifting the leaf litter a little at a time, their orange bodies half hidden, while the mushrooms slowly thicken and darken. Nothing in this process is rushed. It is just another cycle of growth, decay, and renewal, written in softer, smaller movements than the larger predators of Kanto. Eventually, those mushrooms bloom into something heavier and more commanding, and Paris becomes Parasect, a larger form where the single broad cap has spread out to cover its entire back, like a living umbrella. The Pokédex suggests that by this point, the fungus has fully taken over. But even that eerie idea is presented as a kind of completion, the way a bud finally opens into a full flower. Parasect moves slowly and methodically, its legs carrying the mushroom across the forest floor, so the spores can drift into new cracks of bark and fresh beds of moss. Here, in the quietest clearings that never quite see direct sun, Parasect can look less like an insect with a fungus and more like a wandering fungus that happened to keep its legs, a mobile patch of toadstool and shell. It breathes out spores that hang low in the air, and many said these clouds could feel unsettling. Yet in the Pokédex, they are simply another way the forest recycles what has fallen. One common rumor is that a wild Parasect no longer notices anything around it. But this rumor likely stems from players projecting their own unease onto a Pokémon that barely reacts, content to follow the slow timetable of the mushroom it carries. There is an eerie undertone to this line, the idea of a creature gradually giving way to another life form. Yet when described in the Pokédex's calm language, it becomes just one more example of Kanto's ecosystems fitting together, even in strange ways. As the entries move on from these near-silent foragers, the focus rises from the mulch and roots toward other forest dwellers, where small eyes gleam in the underbrush and familiar normal types watch from low branches, hinting at Pokémon that share the same woods but live by very different rhythms. From those rustling normal types in the branches, the forest path in Kanto eventually opens into quieter clearings, places where the air feels still and thoughts seem to echo. And this is where players first meet Abra, a psychic type that almost seems more dream than creature. Abra is small and fox-like, curled in on itself with its tail wrapped close. And did you know its Pokédex entries explain that it spends nearly all of its time asleep, dozing for hours on end, as if the waking world is only a brief interruption? According to some in-game descriptions, Abra sleeps for 18 hours a day, and even when it is dreaming, its body is alert in a way that feels faintly unsettling, because if it senses danger, it will teleport away without opening its eyes, vanishing from one patch of grass to another, like a thought that suddenly slips out of reach. Many entries repeat the same idea in slightly different words, emphasizing its constant drowsiness and its reliance on teleport. And this repetition almost becomes a lullaby by itself, telling players over and over that this is a Pokémon defined not by noise or speed, but by drifting in and out of awareness. For a sleep-focused journey through Kanto, Abra might be one of the most fitting companions, a Pokémon whose entire existence seems tuned to naps and sudden gentle escapes. As Abra evolves, that sleepy potential is pulled into sharper focus, and the line shifts from loose, slumped postures to deliberate stillness, with Kadabra often shown sitting or standing with its legs slightly bent, body poised as if in meditation, spoon held carefully in one hand like a ritual tool. Some claimed that the spoon was a reference to real-world psychic performances, and while that is more rumor than confirmed fact, the image works. A quiet room, a figure with eyes half closed, metal slowly bending without a sound. Alakazam completes that idea, usually depicted standing upright, thin and fox-like, holding a spoon in each hand, its mustache and closed eyes giving it the feeling of an old sage who no longer needs to look outward to understand what is happening around it. The games describe Kadabra and Alakazam as having brains that constantly emit strong psychic waves, so powerful that clocks may run strangely nearby, and it is easy to imagine a silent room with only the faint ticking of a wall clock. the hand stuttering for a moment as this Pokémon focuses. In that kind of scene, outside noises feel muffled, like when players sit deep in thought and the world around them fades to a distant hum, and the psychic line becomes a symbol of that inward turn, of minds that choose to sit quietly and observe. One common rumor is that psychic-type Pokémon in Kanto can read cartridge data or react to the player's real thoughts. And although the rumors are false, the way their entries blur the border between imagination and reality makes them feel strangely plausible. This sense of blurred edges continues with other psychic types in the region, where dreams, illusions, and quiet mental power often matter more than physical strength. And as the Pokédex moves on from Abra, Kadabra, and Alakazam, the path will drift toward stranger shapes and softer lights, where psychic symbols give way to ghostly shadows, and the idea of what is real becomes even harder to pin down. As the psychic symbols fade, the path along the Pokédex drifts from flickering spoons and bending light towards something even slower and softer, where the mind is so quiet it almost forgets to react at all, and the sea itself becomes part of the lullaby. On a low, sandy shoreline at the edge of Kanto, a pink shape rests by the water, half in this moment and half somewhere else entirely. This is Slowpoke, a dopey, gentle Pokémon that many players first remember as the one that simply lies there, tail dipped into the river or sea, staring blankly at the horizon for hours at a time, as if the distant line between sky and water holds every thought it could ever need. Its Pokédex entries talk about delayed reactions, about how it can be bitten, bumped, or spoken to, and only respond many seconds later. And when heard in a calm room, those details stop sounding foolish and instead feel like a description of a mind moving at a different speed. Did you know some claim that Slowpoke was so absent-minded it might forget it was even a water type, though the gentle ripples around its tail say otherwise? According to some in-game descriptions, Slowpoke's tail is not only bait for Shelder, but also strangely insensitive, so it can wait for hours without feeling a thing, letting the current rocket back and forth while the sky slowly changes color overhead. Players could almost imagine sitting beside it on that bank, hands pressed into the warm sand, feeling each grain shift and settle, while the tide glides in and out with a patient rhythm that asks nothing and answers even less. Distant Wingull cries drift over the water like short, pale lines of sound, never urgent, never close, just enough to remind you that the world continues beyond this quiet shoreline. Eventually, in the Pokédex, that stillness changes shape but not tempo, as a Shelder finally clamps onto Slowpoke's tail and the two become Slowbro, a standing figure that has gained armor and posture, but not urgency. Slowbro now moves on two legs, the Shelder spiraled around its tail like a heavy, drowsy partner, and yet the entries still describe it as absent-minded, as if the evolution added weight without adding haste. One common rumor is that the bite shocks Slowpoke awake and makes it clever. But this rumor likely stems from players wanting a sudden burst of power, where the games instead offer a continuation of the same slow, wandering focus. The waves keep rolling in, brushing the shore with a soft hiss, and Slowbro might stand there for so long that small shells begin to ring its feet, while the Shelder on its tail occasionally twitches, as if half dreaming of the deep. Listening to this Pokédex journey, players could almost let their own thoughts stretch out in the same delayed, unhurried way, becoming a little Slowpoke-like themselves, or relaxed enough that a passing idea might take a full minute to arrive. Although the rumors are false about hidden strength or secret speed, the truth is quieter and more inviting. These Pokémon are content to just exist, to share the beach with the fading light until the shoreline itself starts to blur and the next entries lead farther out where stranger shapes wait beneath darker water. From those fading waves and distant shapes, the path turns inward again, away from the open sky and into narrower streets, where the air feels cooler and the lights grow softer, until players reach a place in Kanto that many said felt different the moment it appeared on screen. This is Lavender Town, a quiet cluster of purple roofs and slow music, where even the wind seems to move more carefully between the houses, and the tall silhouette of the Pokemon Tower waits at the edge like a patient guardian. Lavender's tower rises higher than any other building in town, floor after floor of stone and shadow, filled with memorials and incense that burns in calm, curling streams, the smoke drifting just like the thoughts of the trainers who come here to remember. Each step on its stairways would echo softly, a hollow tap on the stone that never quite breaks the silence. And in those long hallways, players first meet Ghastly, the gas Pokemon, hanging in the air like a piece of the mist that forgot to settle on the ground. Ghastly is described as a floating ball of gas with a face, its edges always shifting, as if it could dissolve at any second and then gather itself again, forming two bright eyes and a faint, sleepy grin. Did you know some claimed that Ghastly could seep through any wall in the tower, drifting between rooms like a patch of fog that had learned to watch and listen, though the actual games keep it gently contained to the battles and encounters players expect? It feels less like a monster and more like a stray thought, hovering in old buildings and graveyards, brushing past stone markers before the night air pulls it apart again. When Ghastly changes, it becomes Haunter, and the shape grows a little clearer, but no less weightless. Now a disembodied head with wide eyes and a jagged mouth, flanked by two floating hands that never quite connect to anything. According to some early descriptions, Haunter would sneak behind trainers, or its hands reaching out to tap someone on the shoulder before vanishing again. A playful, harmless trick that startles more than it threatens. One common rumor is that staying in Lavender Town too long would make Haunter follow players into other areas. But this rumor likely stems from how memorable the tower feels compared to the routes outside. After Haunter, the line settles into Gengar, a rounder, more solid shadow that still moves like a living patch of darkness, slipping into corners and along the edges of a room. Gengar is often shown with a wide grin, but the Pokédex also suggests it hides in the dim spaces where light does not fully reach, blending into the gloom until only its eyes are visible, watching without malice, just curiosity. Another rumor said that Gengar was the shadow of a different Pokemon, separated and given a body. However, this was easily debunked by later games that treated it as its own species, part of the natural cycle of spirits and memories in Kanto. Although the rumors are false about hidden dangers tied to Lavender Town's ghosts, the gentle reality is that these ghost Pokemon simply stand at the edge of life and memory, like stories whispered at bedtime, reminding players that endings in this world are quiet and respectful. And as the tower's incense fades and the music softens, the journey through Kanto continues, leading back down the steps, out of the purple streets, and toward other places, where night falls in different ways, and other Pokemon wait in the half-light. Leaving the incense and stone of Lavender Tower behind, players drift back into the wider Kanto night, where the quiet of grass and water slowly gives way to something different. A softer, mechanical hush that feels man-made, yet strangely calm. Instead of wind and trees or waves along the shore, the next part of this journey settles near power lines, transformers, and the distant glow of warning lights blinking against the dark. Here, Magnemite, the magnet Pokemon, hangs in the air like a small metal lantern that forgot how to fall, its body held up by invisible magnetic forces that never quite sleep. Its single eye turns slowly, watching, while the horseshoe-shaped magnets on its sides tilt and adjust, as if listening to a current only it can feel. Around it, there is a faint buzzing and humming sound, not loud or harsh, but like the low, constant noise of a refrigerator at night, or distant electrical equipment in another room that players only notice when everything else has gone quiet. Some claimed that if players stood under the power lines on certain routes for long enough, the screen would flicker and Magnemite would phase in from nowhere, as if drawn out of the cables themselves, though this is just a gentle image rather than a real mechanic. In the stillness of Kanto's outskirts, the thin metal towers and wires become their own kind of forest, and Magnemite simply drifts between them, bobbing slightly, turning its eye toward any movement, then settling back into its patient, floating watch. When three of these small bodies are pulled together, Magneton forms, a cluster of three Magnemite locked into a slow orbit, each one angled a little differently, so that their magnets and screws line up in a careful, balanced pattern. Did you know that some Pokédex descriptions say their combined magnetic field can disturb radio waves and delicate machines? Yet in this quiet reading, it becomes something else, a slightly stronger, but still soft background hum, like an old fluorescent light that never quite turns off. According to some early guidebook comments, Magneton was imagined as a kind of living alarm, reacting to storms and solar activity. But here it just rotates gently in midair, the three eyes blinking at different times, never quite in sync. Imagine the abandoned Kanto power plant at night, with no trainers running, no alarms sounding, only the echo of distant drips and the occasional crackle of a loose wire. The corridors are long and empty, lined with rusting panels and forgotten machines. And every so often, a light in the ceiling flickers, humming and then dimming again. In that half-light, Magnemite and Magneton drift through the halls like mechanical fireflies, their metal bodies catching the weak glow, their shadows sliding along the floor and over old warning signs that no one reads anymore. This becomes a pattern shift from natural to artificial environments, showing that even the most industrial corners of Kanto have their own quiet life after dark, a different ecosystem made of cables, batteries, and steel doors instead of trees and ponds. One common rumor is that if players turn the in-game sound almost all the way down in the power plant and listen closely, they could hear a hidden signal in the static, as if the Pokemon inside were trying to speak in code. However, this was easily debunked and remains just a comforting story about machines that never fully sleep. As the hum of Magnemite and Magneton fades into the distance, the journey is ready to move on again, toward other lights in the dark and other Pokemon that wait where earth, sky, and circuitry quietly meet. As the quiet buzz of machinery fades, the scene shifts upward, back to the surface, where the city itself becomes another kind of habitat, and the night takes on a slower, heavier rhythm that players might not notice at first. Under the same sky that hangs over forests and oceans, there are streets, drains, and alleys where different Pokemon move almost unseen, turning the forgotten parts of Kanto into their own calm, secret routes. In these places, Grimer appears, a living pile of sludge that does not hurry, but simply oozes along, following the gentle pull of gravity, through sewers and back alleys, its body thick and slow, and strangely steady. Along cracked concrete and stained brick, it leaves faint, shiny trails behind, a thin gleam that catches the dim orange glow of streetlights above the grates. So if players ever look down at the right moment, they might see a soft reflection slide past and then vanish. Did you know that according to some Pokédex entries, Grimer feeds on waste and pollution, quietly absorbing what others throw away? So even though many once said it was only a sign of filth, it is also part of a system that keeps everything moving. Higher up, where pipes run along the undersides of bridges and along the backs of old warehouses, water drips in a slow, patient rhythm, each drop echoing in narrow spaces that most people never walk through at night. In these darker corners, muck gathers, a larger, more amorphous form, its body shifting and settling like thick liquid, folding in on itself and then relaxing again, as if the Pokémon is breathing in long, quiet intervals. Some claimed that a single muck could poison an entire block, but this rumor likely stems from the way the games describe its toxins in battle. While in the calm of the city's forgotten places, it simply rests in deep shadows, far from the main roads and the bright windows. Players might imagine the muffled sound of distant traffic above, a low, constant rush that never quite stops, while below, Grimer and Mook move at their own pace, unbothered by the lights and signs and voices overhead. One common rumor is that these Pokémon only bring decay. However, this was easily debunked by how their entries also mention breaking down garbage and sludge, turning it into something new over time, so they become part of an unseen cleaning process that fits naturally into the city's hidden ecosystem. They exist where few people ever look, under manhole covers, behind old factories, near the edges of water treatment plants, and in those narrow gaps between buildings where only a trickle of runoff and a thin stripe of sky can be found. In this way, Kanto's world quietly balances itself. The beauty of forests filled with gentle grass-type Pokémon, the clear rivers where water types drift, and the strange, secret life of this urban underbelly all share the same night air. The same stars that reflect in a mountain lake also glint faintly in a Grimmer's trail, or along the glossy surface of Mook's back, reminding players that every corner, even the ones that seem unpleasant at first, holds a living presence. As the last drip of water echoes down a tunnel and the streetlights hum overhead, the path is ready to leave the city's depths behind for a while, moving toward other edges of Kanto, where the night touches stone, sand, and quiet waves in different ways. Leaving the city's depths behind, players eventually reach a different kind of quiet, where the glow of streetlights fades and the sky opens into a pale, watchful moon. And here, a very small figure sometimes stands alone at the edge of the path. This is Cubone, a tiny ground-type Pokémon, its body slight and its helmet a smooth, pale skull, clutching a worn bone club in both hands as if it were both a weapon and a keepsake. In the soft wind moving over the hills near Lavender Town, Cubone often pauses, looking up, and the silhouette of that skull against the sky becomes one of Kanto's most hauntingly gentle images. According to some early Pokédex descriptions, Cubone is known for crying at night, and the tears that fall from beneath its skull mask are said to stain the bone, leaving faint lines that never quite fade. Did you know many players first read that detail almost in passing, as just another line of text, only to remember it much later when walking through Lavender Town's outskirts with the volume turned low? The game never shows the tears directly, yet the idea lingers, suggesting that this small Pokémon is missing someone important, and that the skull it wears is more than armor. It is a memory held so close it never leaves. Out beyond the Pokémon Tower, the grass shifts in long, slow waves, and the sound of the wind can almost blend with distant chimes hanging from wooden eaves. gently tapping in uneven rhythms. In that half-heard music, Cubone's quiet grief feels less like a sharp sadness and more like the ache of remembering a voice or a face that has gone silent. And some claimed that if players waited long enough on certain nights, a Cubone would appear on the hilltop, framed by the moon, its club held to its chest. Another rumor said that pressing certain buttons while standing there could call out a hidden event. But however this was easily debunked, the image of a lone Cubone under the sky remained more powerful than any secret encounter. When Cubone grows and evolves, the Pokédex introduces Marowak, a more mature, resolute form that still carries a bone and still wears a skull, but now stands with a straighter posture and a steadier gaze. Marowak's entries describe a Pokémon that has accepted its past, its grief tempered into something like resolve, and in Kanto's quiet lore, it often feels like a guardian, watching over graveyards, family dens, and the soft earth where memories rest. Players walking through Lavender Town's outer paths can imagine Marowak standing just beyond the light, listening to the chimes, making sure the smaller Cubone are never entirely alone. Although the rumors are false, the story that forms around these two Pokémon becomes a kind of bedtime tale, one about remembrance and resilience rather than fear, where even the saddest Pokédex notes are read like gentle lines in a longer, healing story. As the wind over the grass slowly fades and the chimes grow distant, the trail begins to slope down again toward stone, sand, and the hush of the shoreline, where another figure waits in the dark with a very different kind of silence. The shoreline silence opens into something heavier now, as if the path itself sinks under the weight ahead, and players find that the figure waiting in the dark is not a ghost at all, but stone given shape and slow intention. Rhyhorn, the Spike's Pokémon, stands there like a fallen fragment of a mountain, its body covered in rough, rock-like plates, every edge dulled by time and sand, its breath a slow, steady rhythm that feels more like a distant drum than a living creature. When Rhyhorn finally moves, it does not turn or weave or hesitate. It simply chooses a direction and follows it, straight ahead, step after step, its heavy feet pressing into the ground until the impacts travel outward, like faint, far-off thunder. Some claimed that if players left a Rhyhorn walking long enough in one line, it could circle the entire region and quietly return to the same spot, its memory too simple to understand what it had done, but its path carved into the world behind it. Then, when the energy is spent, it just sinks down again, folding its massive body into the earth and rests for hours without stirring, like a boulder that only pretended to be alive for a short while. Reedon, the drill Pokémon, is what happens when that living boulder stands up and remembers how to look at the sky. More upright, almost dinosaur-like, ear with its horn sharpened to a spiral point and its tail curved like a heavy branch. It is often described charging through lava or shrugging off explosions, though here it is easier to imagine Reedon standing still on a cliff above the desert, watching the horizon as the sun sinks and the colors fade from orange to deep violet. According to some early Pokédex notes, its hide could resist nearly anything, yet it simply stays there, unmoving, as if guarding nothing in particular, just bearing silent witness while the light drains away and the first stars appear. Far below, in another kind of stillness, Omanite stirs in the dark water, a spiral shell turning slowly in laboratory tanks or quiet seas. Revived from fossils that slept in stone for millions of years, these small, ancient Pokémon unfurl their soft tentacles with a careful, almost shy motion, tasting the water, exploring glass walls or smooth rocks. Omastar, larger and heavier, carries a thicker, spiked shell, its tentacles longer and more deliberate, curling and uncurling in slow patterns that might have seemed frightening once, but here just feel like the steady opening and closing of a hand that has finally woken up after an age of rest. Did you know that Kabuto, the shellfish Pokemon, is often compared to a tiny ancient horseshoe crab? Its flat body gliding along the ocean floor, its eyes reflecting only the faintest hints of light? Fossil records in the games say that it once lived in shallow seas, but in the imagination it moves through deeper, darker water, where only drifting sand and distant currents keep it company. Kabutops, with its bladed arms and narrow frame, would have been a predator in that world, yet even those scythes can be pictured held close and still, the Pokemon half buried in silt, letting the ages roll over it like slow waves. In this part of the Pokédex, time itself feels like another quiet Pokemon, breathing in eras and breathing out new shapes, so that the gap between Rhyhorn's heavy footsteps and Omanite's gentle spirals becomes just a single, long moment. Although the rumors are false that these fossils remember their past lives or secret oceans hidden beneath Kanto, the thought of such deep time, of layers of stone and sand building up and eroding away, can make present worries seem very small, like footprints that the next tide will smooth out without effort. As the desert winds fade into the hush of the ancient sea, the path is already curving toward gentler waves and living shores, where other water Pokemon wait in the moonlight, drifting just beneath the surface. From those ancient waters and quiet fossil beds, the shoreline of Kanto feels calmer now, and as the waves flatten into a slow, regular rhythm, another presence starts to match that same steady pattern, a kind of living island that many players remember blocking their path. This is Snorlax, the sleeping Pokemon, a huge, round creature that does not pace or hunt or wander, but simply lies down wherever it happens to be, stretching across bridges and roads, turning a busy route into a dead end just by existing there in the sun. In the Pokédex, Snorlax is described as spending most of its time eating and sleeping, a kind of gentle glutton that only wakes to consume an enormous meal before drifting off again. And did you know some entries even mention that whole fields of grass can be flattened under its weight as it rests? Yet in this quiet journey, the focus is not on the scale of its appetite, but on the way its slow, deep breathing creates a kind of natural metronome, its wide belly rising and falling like a calm tide, so regular and unhurried that players could almost count along without thinking. Each inhale is like a wave sliding up the sand, each exhale like water slipping back into the dark. According to some in-game descriptions, Snorlax is so relaxed that other, smaller Pokemon feel safe enough to climb onto its fur and fall asleep there, using it as a living cushion. And the image of a Pikachu or a Clefairy curled against that vast, warm stomach turns a blocking obstacle into something closer to a traveling campsite. Its fur is often shown as thick and soft, the kind of surface that would give way just enough under pressure, not hard like stone, but not unstable either, so that leaning against it would feel like resting against something solid and safe, while still being wrapped in warmth. Players might remember the first encounter with Snorlax involving a Pokeflute, that odd moment where music is used to disturb sleep instead of encourage it. Though here the idea reverses, and the imagined sound is not the flute, but the soft snoring that follows once it settles back down. One common rumor is that Snorlax could secretly be awakened without the flute. If certain buttons were pressed in time with its breathing, Some claimed that matching the rhythm would cause it to stand and reveal a hidden path. However, this was easily debunked, and the only real secret Snorlax keeps is how completely it surrenders to rest. As this section lingers with that image, players are quietly invited to mirror Snorlax's state, to let limbs grow heavy, to let shoulders sink, to allow the weight of the day to pool downward into the mattress or pillow beneath. A life with no hurry, no alarm clocks, no stress, just the certainty that it is acceptable to stop moving, to drift, to let thoughts slow and stretch out. If eyelids begin to close here, that is allowed. Although the rumors are false about hidden roots under Snorlax, there is one real path it opens, a path into sleep. And at any point in this journey, it is perfectly fine to follow that path away from the screen, while other Kanto Pokemon continue their quiet stories in the background. Past Snorlax's resting place, the path does not only stay on land. Very soon, the region opens into water, and players are invited to leave the solid ground of Kanto's roots and drift out over the sea instead, letting the board or the surfing Pokemon become a small, steady island beneath them. The screen fills with blue, and each soft splash of movement feels slower, more distant, as if the whole game has begun to breathe in time with the waves. Out here, the soundscape changes. In the imagination, there is the muffled rolls of waves hitting the shore in a constant gentle rhythm, the faint hiss of foam drawing back across wet sand, and the quiet slap of water against a surfboard or a Lapras's shell, while a cool mist could almost be felt on the face. The air would smell faintly of salt and seaweed, and somewhere far off, winged Pokemon cry once, then fade back into the distance, leaving only the soft rush of the tide and the slow, metronome-like strokes of surf. Just under that shifting surface, Tentacool drifts. In the Pokédex, this Pokemon is described as jellyfish-like, and players can picture it suspended in the water column, its small, translucent body pulsing gently with the rhythm of the waves above. Red orbs glowing like low lanterns beneath the ripples. It does not rush. It simply rises and falls, its thin tentacles trailing behind in lazy curves, moving only when currents insist, as if the entire creature is content to be carried, to float in place while the rest of Kanto hurries past overhead. Deeper down, where the color of the sea darkens and the surface becomes a blurred silver ceiling, Tentacruel appears as a much larger shape, more imposing in the Pokédex and in battle, but strangely calm at rest. Its many tentacles stretch outward, and behind it, like long ribbons in slow motion, each one swaying with the water, not attacking, only drifting. Did you know some claimed Tentacruel was far more aggressive than it truly appears? A constant threat waiting just below the player's sprite, though in this quiet version of the sea, it feels more like an ancient guardian, watching from a respectful distance. According to some, Kanto's ocean routes always felt empty, just endless battles and the same few sprites repeating. However, this was easily debunked by players who paid attention to the atmosphere, noticing the way dawn or dusk changed the palette, and how surfing at those times made the world seem wider. Imagine a trainer crossing Route 19 or Route 21 at sunrise, the sky pale and low, the water reflecting soft colors, while Tentacool and Tentacruel move silently beneath the board, sometimes appearing as brief encounters, sometimes only suggested by a darker shape under the surface that never turns into a battle at all. One common rumor is that the sea in Kanto hides nothing but these jellyfish and a few swimmers. But this rumor likely stems from players rushing to the next gym and not lingering to consider what else could be out there. In the distance, playful shapes like seal Pokémon could be imagined breaking the surface for air before vanishing again. And far below, deeper than any in-game dive, long, dragon-like silhouettes might twist through the dark water, hinting at powerful Pokémon that the original titles only suggested. As the journey continues, the routes over the open ocean become a bridge, not only between towns, but between these gentle surface drifters and the more mysterious sea creatures still waiting further along the Pokédex, ready to appear and then fade just as quietly as the tide. From those drifting shapes beneath the waves, players eventually come back toward the shoreline, where the water grows shallower, quieter, and a different kind of presence waits beside the ripples. Psyduck, the yellow duck Pokémon, often stands there on the bank, feet just touching the edge of the water, holding its head in both hands as if something heavy and invisible presses behind its eyes. And it will stay like that for long moments, completely still, except for the faintest tilt of its head in confusion. Sometimes it looks as though it has forgotten why it walked to the water in the first place. And did you know some claimed that if players waited long enough, Psyduck would suddenly remember and unlock a hidden move or a secret event, though nothing like that was ever actually programmed into the games. According to some early descriptions, Psyduck's headaches could trigger mysterious powers, and in the quiet of Kanto's roots, that idea feels a little eerie, as if the calm surface of a pond might hide pressure building far below. Yet in the Pokédex, Psyduck is small, harmless, almost comical, a creature whose confusion becomes part of the region's gentle background noise, like the soft splash of a Magikarp or the wind in the grass. When that pressure finally resolves, it becomes Golduck, a sleeker, more confident swimmer, its yellow replaced by deep blue, its posture straightened, its hands no longer clutching its head, but cutting through the water with practiced strokes. Golduck glides along rivers and across the broad roots of ocean, moving under the moonlight where the silver reflection turns its wake into a glowing line that follows it through the darkness. And some said, this Pokémon could outpace even the fastest Lapras, if the current favored it. One common rumor is that a Golduck seen at midnight near the Seafoam Islands would lead players to a hidden cove or a secret cave. Another rumor said that its red gem would flash just before a rare Pokémon appeared. However, this was easily debunked by players who patiently surfed those same routes and found only the usual encounters. Farther inland, where the water narrows again into small ponds and circular pools, Poliwag appears, a tiny tadpole Pokémon with a pale spiral pattern on its belly that almost seems to rotate if players stare at it too long. The games describe this as its internal organs seen through thin skin, but when read slowly, that spiral becomes a hypnotic swirl instead, a gentle turning symbol that draws the eye and calms the mind, like watching water spin quietly down a drain. As Poliwag grows into Poliwhirl, the spiral remains, now on a rounder, sturdier body, with arms that can reach out of the water and hands that glisten with constant droplets. Poliwhirl and its final form, Poliwrath, stand more solidly at the edge of ponds and lakes, more muscular and imposing, yet still carrying that same spiral motif, as if the calm turning motion at their center never left. Water drips from their gloves and falls back into the pool in a steady rhythm, each drop sending out small, concentric ripples that echo the spiral on their bodies, reinforcing the idea that in Kanto, water is always moving, always connecting. These Pokémon hint that the region's lakes and rivers are like veins of calm blue running between towns and routes, a network of currents that players follow almost without thinking. And although the rumors are false about secret evolutions or hidden battles waiting in every shadowed cove, the feeling that something might be just out of sight keeps the imagination drifting. As the journey continues along these waterways, the playful surface currents around Psyduck and Poliwag slowly give way to deeper, stranger shapes in the Pokédex. And just beyond them, the next water-dwelling Pokémon waits in the dark, ready to blur the line between gentle myth and something far more mysterious. As the waters grow darker around Psyduck and Poliwag, the currents seem to carry players somewhere colder, until the ripples slow and harden, and the surface becomes a sheet of pale frozen glass stretching out under a dim sky. The noise of splashing fades, replaced by a distant, hollow creaking, as if the ice itself is breathing in the quiet, and every sound is wrapped in the muffled stillness that only snow-covered coasts tend to hold. Here, Seal appears, a white, seal-like Pokémon that almost blends into the frost, its rounded body and small horn just barely outlined against the pale ice. It moves not with sudden jumps or frantic splashes, but by sliding across the ice floes in long, gentle glides, its smooth skin catching faint starlight as it travels from one floating platform to the next. Every so often, it pauses near a small, round hole in the ice, pokes its head out into the crisp air, and takes a slow breath, sending up a tiny cloud of mist that vanishes almost as soon as it forms. Did you know some claimed that if players followed a seal from hole to hole along an endless frozen route, they would eventually reach a hidden area beyond the usual Kanto Sea, a place where the map edge simply faded into night? This rumor likely stems from the way Seal is often described as comfortable in both water and ice, slipping between the two as if the boundary is only an illusion. In reality, there is no such secret route. However, the mental picture of a single pale seal guiding travelers across creaking flows under a silent sky tends to linger like a half-remembered dream. When Seal evolves into Dugong, the same habitat takes on a more graceful, almost ceremonial feeling, as its body lengthens into a sleek, elegant swimmer built for the cold. Dugong glides under sheets of ice with almost no visible effort, its long form tracing slow arcs beneath the frozen ceiling. While above, the wind moves in low, steady gusts that sting the skin but never quite break the calm. According to some Pokédex descriptions, Dugong's coat is so well adapted to the chill that it can sleep even in sub-zero waters, and each time it surfaces, its breath forms a soft cloud of mist that hangs for a moment in the air before drifting away. On quiet nights, players can imagine Seal and Dugong resting together on drifting icebergs, bodies curled, tails wrapped around themselves for warmth, their white forms nearly vanishing against the snow. The only sounds are the slow lapping of dark water against ice and the occasional low groan as a distant flow shifts. While above them, the sky is either scattered with cold, sharp stars or lit by a faint curtain of northern lights that move as slowly as the Pokémon beneath. One common rumor is that if certain conditions were met, a legendary shape would sometimes cross that sky, a larger, more distant echo of the same frozen beauty, foreshadowing a bird of ice like Articuno that would one day appear in the Pokédex to embody this quiet, crystalline world on a far grander scale, as the journey continues deeper into Kanto's colder myths. From that frozen stillness of ice, the scene shifts almost without sound, as if the camera of the mind slowly pans from a glassy field of snow to the dark interior of a quiet power plant, where the air feels heavy and the faint smell of metal and ozone hangs like the promise of distant rain. Out beyond the windows, Low clouds gather over Kanto, and very far away, a soft roll of thunder sounds like someone turning over in sleep. In that dim, industrial glow, Voltorb rests. This Pokémon is shaped almost exactly like a Pokéball, so still and ordinary at first glance that many players said they did not notice it until it was too late. Yet here it simply sits motionless beside a row of silent machines, its smooth surface reflecting the warning lights in tiny red arcs. Every so often there is a faint crackle of electricity, a tiny blue-white thread that crawls across its shell and vanishes, like static on a blanket in a dark room. More suggestion than danger, more atmosphere than action. Did you know some claimed that Voltorb was born from faulty Pokeballs left too long near high-voltage lines, as if the energy itself decided to take on a round, watchful form? Although the rumors are false, the idea matches the feeling this Pokémon gives off when pictured in a corner of an empty building, humming in silence among cables and breaker boxes, waiting for nothing in particular, just existing as a little pocket of stored tension. The way a mind can hold on to one last thought before drifting off. Nearby, its evolution electrode could be imagined, larger and inverted in color, like a flipped reflection of the same idea. Normally, electrode can roll quickly along the ground, and one common rumor is that it would chase players endlessly through the plant if disturbed. But in this sleepy version of Kanto, it has chosen a still corner instead, resting against a wall with its eyes half-lidded, the curve of its body just touching the concrete. According to some, electrode stores so much power that it might explode without warning. Here, that energy only becomes a soft, steady hum, like a charged battery on a distant shelf, a low note that blends into the background until it becomes almost comforting. Outside, the storm gathers. A flash of lightning far away briefly outlines the rooftops of Vermilion, or the tall grass near Route 10, then fades, leaving only the afterimage behind your eyelids. The air feels thick and cool, and that familiar smell of rain before a storm drifts in through half-open doors and broken windows. The way a breeze moves through a hallway at night, carrying just enough charge to raise the tiny hairs on your arms. In that charged air, Jolteon appears, an evolution of Eevee, whose entire body reflects the atmosphere around it. Its fur is spiky and sharp when filled with static, every needle-like strand standing on end as if it were a walking storm cloud. Yet here, Jolteon stands quietly, on a dry patch of floor, ears relaxed, eyes calm, the electricity along its coat pulsing more slowly with each breath. Another rumor said that if Jolteon shook itself at full power, it could call down lightning from the sky on command. However, this was easily debunked by later games and official material, which showed its electricity as swift but still natural, more like a sudden spark than a divine bolt. As the imagined thunder moves farther away, Jolteon's fur begins to settle, each spike softening, lying down one by one, like hair smoothing after the wind dies. The static that once made it bristle fades to a gentle warmth, and the tension that once filled the room drains away in quiet waves, the same way a body can unclench after holding on all day. Voltorb's tiny crackles grow less frequent. Electrode's hum lowers in pitch until it is almost silence, and outside, the last flickers of lightning on the horizon become slower, more distant, like thought stretching thin at the edge of sleep. This little cluster of electric types becomes a kind of atmospheric buildup before rest. The part of the night where there is still a trace of energy in the air, a hint of static in the blankets, a memory of thunder that has already passed. Some players claimed that listening closely to the background sounds in power plant areas could help them relax, that the constant, low electronic buzz felt like white noise. And this rumor likely stems from the same instinct that makes a soft fan or a steady rain comforting when everything else is quiet. Here, the storm does not break with a violent flash. Instead, it releases itself slowly, giving that stored charge back to the world in tiny, harmless sparks, until all that remains is a faint glow on the horizon and the promise of calmer skies. As Kanto's night deepens and the electric tension finally fades, the journey can drift away from the storm and back toward gentler ground, where other Pokémon wait in softer shadows, ready to guide the next steps of this slow descent into sleep. With the storm fading behind the players and the air finally settling into a gentler hush, the path through Kanto bends towards something smaller and quieter, a single shape that could, at any moment, become many different things. Eevee, the evolution Pokémon, waits in the soft light of towns and the edges of grassy roots, a small fox-like creature with wide, reflective eyes and a coat of fluffy fur that seems to catch every stray breeze, as if it is always halfway between waking curiosity and drowsy comfort. Eevee is known for its adaptability, and players see it wandering near homes, parks, and quiet corners of cities, where lanterns glow and the grass is kept short, as though it prefers places that feel safe and familiar, yet still full of paths it has not taken yet. Its body is said to contain unstable genetic code that could react to different stones and environments, and did you know some claimed this made Eevee a kind of living rumor in itself? A Pokémon that could always be hiding one more unseen form. Even without evolving, the way it tilts its head or curls its tail around its paws gives the impression of a creature that could either leap forward in an instant or simply curl up and fall asleep where it stands. When Eevee touches a water stone, one possible future takes shape as Vaporeon, a water-dwelling evolution whose smooth, pale blue body seems designed to disappear into waves and moonlit reflections. Along riverbanks and at the edge of the sea, players might imagine Vaporeon resting half-submerged, its finned tail drifting like seaweed, while its frilled neck rises just above the surface, breathing in the cool night air. According to some, Vaporeon could dissolve into water entirely, its form breaking apart into ripples and droplets until only the memory of its outline remains, like a dream fading the moment players try to recall it after waking. Though the official data treats this more as a poetic description than a strict mechanic. Another path sends Eevee into electricity, revisiting Jolteon, the spiked electric evolution that seems to embody every sharp sound and sudden movement that keeps minds awake. Jolteon's fur stands on end, charged with static, and one common rumor is that if players kept it in the party long enough, without letting it battle, its stored energy would build until sparks began to appear on the overworld. However, this was easily debunked by data miners. In reality, Jolteon's quick reactions and twitching ears feel like the last flickers of alertness before rest finally wins. The contrast between its usual tension and the eventual quiet making the calm that follows feel deeper. The final branch here, in Kanto's first set of evolutions, is Flareon, a fire-based evolution whose thick, fluffy fur radiates a steady warmth, as if it is carrying a small hearth inside its body. Some claimed that Flareon could raise the temperature of an entire room just by breathing slowly, and while this is false in strict gameplay terms, the image of Flareon curled beside a trainer's bed, its mane glowing softly, turns it into a living heater, a presence like a cozy blanket on a cold night. Its internal flame is said to burn at extremely high temperatures, yet in calm moments it is described more as a gentle ember, a warmth that never quite goes out. Taken together, Eevee and its branching forms suggest that rest, for players and Pokémon alike, does not have a single correct shape. Some prefer the quiet pull of water, like Vaporeon sinking into the depths where sound is muffled and light breaks into wavering lines. Others settle only after a burst of movement, like Jolton finally relaxing once all that nervous energy is spent. Others still feel safest wrapped in heat, like Flareon's slow, breathing fire. This Pokédex journey can drift alongside any of those preferences, letting the mind choose its own path through Kanto's night. And as the routes grow darker and quieter, more evolutions and more resting places still wait just beyond the next turn in the road. As the last traces of firelight fade behind those resting evolutions, the paths of Kanto bend back toward gentler green, into patches of grass where the air feels thicker and warmer, and the sounds of the region become muffled and slow, as if the whole landscape is taking a long, drowsy breath. Here, the night doesn't feel empty, it feels overgrown. Lying low in that grass, half hidden by blades beaded with leftover rain, Exeggcute rests as a loose cluster of pale egg-like Pokémon, each shell marked with tiny chips and faint cracks that look more like creases in a pillow than real damage. Some of the faces are wide awake, eyes open and alert, but others droop in permanent half-sleep, lids heavy, mouths turned down in a soft, confused frown. And together they huddle so closely that players could almost imagine them as a pile of cushions someone absent-mindedly left out in the field. When the breeze moves, they barely react. Just a tiny wobble here, a quiet roll there, the damp earth under them cool and solid, carrying the smell of soil that has just soaked in a light rain. Did you know early guidebooks describe Exeggcute as seeds rather than eggs, which only adds to the feeling that this patch of grass is halfway between garden and dream, not quite one or the other. According to some in-game Pokédex entries, these Pokémon communicate with each other telepathically, so even when they appear motionless, the cluster might be sharing slow, drifting thoughts, like the way a person's mind wanders right before sleep. The distant buzz of bug Pokémon, somewhere deeper in the root, blends with the soft chirp of night insects, creating a low, constant background hum that could lull almost anything into stillness. From that low vantage point, the scene stretches upward into something taller and more tropical, as Exeggcute rises like a living palm tree at the edge of the sand, its thick trunk rooted firmly in damp, warm ground. Each of its coconut-like heads wears a different expression, yet all of them seem drowsy, eyes half-lidded, swaying gently as the humid air rolls in from an unseen shoreline. One common rumor is that if players waited long enough under an Exeggutor's shade, one of those heads would fall, crack open, and reveal a hidden Pokémon inside. However, this was easily debunked, and in the real games, the only thing that falls is the angle of the sun, slowly stretching those shadows across the sand. The fronds above rustle with a deep, leafy sound mixing with the faint hiss of the tide and the smell of warm salt and wet bark. Closer to the ground again, Tangela sits like a forgotten shrub at the border between path and forest, a dense tangle of blue vines that twist and loop over each other in endless knots. Hidden within that looping mass, two simple eyes peer out, bright but unhurried, watching the world pass without needing to move. Every time the wind brushes over the root, Tangela's vines sway and whisper together, leaves at the tips fluttering with a soft, papery rustle. And some claim that if players circled it enough times, those vines would part to reveal a secret form. Although the rumors are false, the idea fits this place, where nothing is quite fully awake. The ground here feels sponge soft underfoot, the scent of crushed grass rising with each step, and the air holds that after-rain coolness, even as the humidity clings to skin and fabric. In this overgrown corner of Kanto, time seems to slow until it almost stops. With Exegcute dozing in the grass, Exegutor swaying against a deepening sky, and Tanchla rooted in quiet observation, turning the whole route into a kind of living, breathing garden that only half remembers daylight. If this part of the region feels like a dream, gently blurring the line between wild Pokemon and wandering thoughts, it also hints that deeper in the foliage, beyond the last visible path, other shapes and other stories might still be waiting, just out of sight. From that overgrown path, where grass-type silhouettes fade into the dark, it is only a small step deeper into Kanto's stranger stories. The ones where shapes at the edge of the light start to look a little too much like people, and the Pokédex quietly describes Pokémon that move and gesture in ways players recognize from everyday life. In these entries, the region feels less like a simple wilderness and more like a neighborhood at night, where a curtain shifts, a porch light flickers, and something is standing just outside the circle of vision. Did you know the Pokédex describes Mr. Mime as a mime-like Pokémon that can create invisible walls, barriers so convincing that even seasoned trainers hesitate before walking forward, as if there really is glass between them and the road. It copies human movements with strangely precise timing, in clapping when someone claps, tilting its head when someone tilts theirs. And according to some accounts, it will stand just beyond a yard's edge, near houses, hands pressed against nothing at all, as if practicing a performance for an audience that never quite arrives. At a distance, through a window, it might be hard to tell if the figure outside is a person in costume or a Pokémon, especially when it freezes perfectly still the moment it notices it has been seen. One common rumor is that in some quiet Kanto suburbs, trainers returning home late would feel something soft yet solid when they turned a corner, only to realize they had walked straight into one of these unseen screens, with Mr. Mime already bowing an apology. Some claimed that if players waved slowly, Mr. Mime would mirror each motion with unnerving accuracy, almost like looking into a slightly distorted reflection that knows exactly how a human body should move, but chooses to exaggerate each gesture just a little too far. Jinx, by contrast, is described as moving with a slow, swaying, dance-like motion, its steps oddly graceful for its round shape, leaving prints in the snow that trace a looping pattern rather than a straight line. In icy roots and snowy outskirts, the Pokédex notes how it seems to dance more intensely when watched, its arms and hair moving in a rhythm that does not quite match the wind, and some trainers said its voice carries as a soft, rhythmic sound, almost like a lullaby heard from far away. Another rumor said that if players listened carefully in a storm, faint music could drift from a nearby building or cave mouth, with a shadowed figure swaying just beyond the entrance, the details of its face hidden by distance and blowing snow. Although the rumors are false in the strict sense that the games never confirm these late-night encounters, stories like this spread between players the way any urban legend does, passed along on long walks home, or whispered in Pokémon centers when the lights are low. Human-shaped Pokémon, like Mr. Mime and Jinx, blur the line between people and Pokémon, turning an ordinary silhouette behind a curtain into something uncertain, and making the idea of hearing faint music from an upper floor feel like the start of a Pokédex entry. As the Kanto journey continues, other legends wait in the dark as well, especially in places where the lights are fewer, the paths are narrower, and the silence leaves more room for stories. Out beyond those narrow paths and darkened rooms, the region opens up again, and players are reminded that not every legend hides in a haunted tower or behind a locked door. Some of the rarest Pokémon in Kanto drift quietly through water and sky, almost out of sight, as if the game itself is only catching a glimpse of something older. Among these, the Dragon-type line feels distant and myth-like, as though it belongs to a calmer story told just before sleep. Dratini is the first hint of that story, a small, serpentine Pokémon that the Pokédex places in deep lakes and long, slow rivers, where its smooth body can glide through the water like a pale ribbon. Its rounded nose, gentle eyes, and soft curves are a contrast to the sharper designs of many Kanto Pokémon, and players are told that it sheds its skin again and again as it grows, leaving faint traces behind in the depths. Some claimed that if players surfed every tile of a certain lake for long enough, a hidden Dratini encounter would appear with unusual moves, though this is false and the actual methods are far more straightforward. As Dratini evolves, the line stretches out into Dragonair, a longer and more elegant form, with a swan-like neck and small wings on the sides of its head that do not need to flap to keep it aloft. Blue orbs rest along its body and at the tip of its tail, and the games quietly mention that these orbs can glow faintly, with some entries saying that Dragonair can change the weather just by being present. According to some, this rumor likely stems from the way Dragonair appears surrounded by gentle light in official art, as if the air around it is always shifting. It is easy to imagine Dragonair coiled around a remote lake at dawn, its long body circling the shoreline, while mist rises slowly from the surface, the orbs reflecting the soft colors of the sky as Pidgey and Poliwag start to stir in the distance. In that kind of scene, the dragon type is not a battle threat, but a quiet guardian, and the water feels deeper, simply because something so rare has chosen to rest there. Did you know? Some players said that seeing Dragonair in the wild, without fishing or special methods, meant the cartridge was haunted. A claim with no evidence, but a tone that matched its serene, unreal presence. The final form, Dragonite, shifts the mood without breaking it, turning the long, ethereal shape into a surprisingly gentle, round-bodied dragon that looks closer to a friendly mascot than a fearsome monster. Its small wings still carry it across great distances, and Pokédex entries mention that it can circle the globe in a short time. Yet it is described as kind-hearted, rescuing drowning people and guiding lost ships back to shore at night, its silhouette briefly outlined against distant clouds. One common rumor is that a Dragonite appearing during a storm on certain routes would trigger a hidden event tied to undiscovered islands. However, this was easily debunked by players who mapped every encounter. Although the rumors are false, the combination of rarity, calm power, and almost secret habitats makes the dragon line feel like a quiet rehearsal for the truly legendary Pokémon that still wait at the edge of the Kanto Pokédex. In places where the sky darkens, the music softens, and the idea of what might appear next starts to feel less like data and more like a story being whispered just out of view. From that quiet rehearsal in the Dragon Line, players move into legends that do not roar so much as they drift overhead. Because in Kanto, even the strongest forces are introduced like a calm change in the weather, rather than a sudden alarm. And the first of these is Articuno, the ice blue bird that turns a snowstorm into something almost like a lullaby. Did you know some claimed Articuno would only appear if players walked in circles through blizzards for real-time hours, waiting for a hidden counter to fill, as if the game itself needed to fall into a trance before revealing it? In the Pokédex, Articuno is tied to frozen mountains and dangerous cold, but here you can imagine it as a long, pure graceful shape gliding through white air its wings trailing frost that does not sting, only softens. Each slow beat leaving a faint shimmering path that hangs like breath on a winter morning. Snow falls more gently where it passes, the flakes turning from harsh, sideways streaks into lazy spirals, and the noise of the wind seems to dim, as if the whole route has been wrapped in thick, crystalline blankets that swallow sound until only the quiet crunch underfoot remains. According to some early guidebook rumors, Articuno could even calm in-game hail if players entered battle at the exact frame a storm began. But however this was easily debunked, the image of a bird that tames the sky stayed, and it fits the way this legend feels less like a boss and more like a moving piece of weather that players might glimpse once and then remember for years. Far away from that cold, Zapdos belongs to another kind of sky, one where clouds stack high and dark over the power plant, and the air tastes like metal and rain. Zapdos is usually described as a spiky, yellow silhouette that splits the air with violent lightning, though for sleep, it helps to picture it as a distant figure outlined inside the storm itself. A jagged shadow that drifts from cloud to cloud, while muted flashes blink around it like slow camera shutters. Thunder does not crack here. It rumbles far away, a low, rolling sound that comes several heartbeats after each flicker. The kind of noise players might feel more in their chest than in their ears. Steady and predictable, like waves on a shoreline of air. Another rumor said that if players left the game on during a real thunderstorm, Zapdos encounter rates would rise. This rumor likely stems from the way lightning and this Pokemon are so tightly linked in the imagination. But in truth, the bird simply waits in its room of humming machines, as if it is just another piece of weather being stored behind locked doors. Then there is Moltres, the third bird, whose fire could have been framed as disaster, yet often feels more like a traveling sunset that has decided to land for a moment inside a cave. Moltres is a long, graceful bird with wings of flame. But instead of roaring pillars, imagine its fire as endless, slow-burning embers, a glow that clings to its feathers without smoke, as if every plume is a campfire reduced to coals. The light it gives off would not scorch. It would simply warm the rock around it, painting the tunnel walls in moving gold and orange, like late evening sunlight filtered through leaves. And players standing nearby might feel the kind of warmth usually found sitting beside a quiet hearth, that soft pressure on the face and hands that makes the rest of the world seem a little farther away. Snow falling around Articuno, distant thunder murmuring where Zapdos drifts, and the gentle heat of Moltres turning stone corridors into temporary homes. Together create an elemental lullaby that wraps the whole region in slow, balanced motion, as if Kanto itself is breathing with these three steady forces. One common rumor is that capturing all three birds in a specific order would unlock a hidden fourth guardian, a secret entry beyond the Pokédex. And although the rumors are false, they hint at something true in the feeling players get here. The sense that even above these legends, there are shapes still waiting. More mysterious Pokemon, resting at the very end of the Kanto list, in places where the sky might open just a little more before the final page turns. From those shapes in the sky, the Pokédex quietly turns to shapes made by human hands. And did you know that in Kanto, not every entry comes from forests, caves, or seas? Some come from lines of code and glass tanks, where the night feels different, more controlled, and yet just as mysterious. In these places, curiosity is the habitat, and the light never fully goes out. Porygon is one of those entries, a polygonal, artificial Pokemon created entirely from computer code, a creature that does not need a nest or a den, only a terminal and a power source humming softly in the dark. Its body is made of flat planes and sharp angles, like a low-resolution model that somehow learned to breathe. And the Pokédex quietly notes that it can enter cyberspace, slipping into networks and wires, moving through data like a digital ghost that leaves no footprints, only the faintest trace in a status log. According to some, Porygon could even hide inside a PC box and watch as players sorted their teams, though this was more of a quiet rumor than a mechanic. Imagine a dimly lit lab at night, long after the researchers have gone home, where the only movement comes from screensaver patterns drifting across monitors and the gentle blinking of indicator lights. The computers cast a soft bluish glow over the room, and Porygon floats in front of one of the displays, its faceted sides catching and reflecting the light in slow, deliberate motions, as if it is listening to the silent flow of information on the screen. The machines give off a constant low hum, fans spinning, hard drives whispering, and every so often there is the soft whoosh of an automatic door at the end of the corridor, opening for no one, then sliding shut again. Down another hallway, behind thicker glass and more warning labels, the man-made feeling of Porygon blends into something older, as fossil Pokemon like Kabuto and Omanite rest in tanks or carefully controlled habitats. These are creatures revived through science, from fragments of shell and spiral stone, their forms pieced back together until they can move again under artificial currents and filtered light that mimic ancient seas. Kabuto clings to the smooth interior of its enclosure, its domed shell reflecting the pale lamps above, while Omanite drifts slowly, tentacles curling and uncurling as bubbles rise in a steady stream toward the surface. The sterile smell of the laboratory corridor at midnight, a mix of metal, cleaning agents, and faint ozone from overworked circuitry, wraps around all of these habitats, tying together digital ghosts and resurrected fossils in one long, quiet experiment. Some claimed that if players waited long enough near the fossil lab, a hidden machine would revive a different, unknown Pokemon. Another rumor said that Porygon could merge with Kabuto's data and unlock a secret form. However, this was easily debunked once the game code was fully explored. Although the rumors are false, they point to something true about Kanto. Here, or even the cutting edge of technology has its own contemplative side, where man-made and revived Pokemon become symbols of curiosity, of questions asked in low voices. And just ahead in the Pokédex, other artificial shapes and psychic patterns wait to blur the line between what is natural and what is designed. From there, the Pokédex begins to guide players away from laboratories and fossil machines and back out under the open sky, as if Kanto itself is easing toward a final, quiet stretch of road where the last wild encounters feel softer and more reflective than the routes before. Did you know even the late route Pokemon, the ones many only meet near the end of a journey, can feel like the region's way of dimming the lights and slowing the pace? On these distant paths, a strange, jelly-like shape sometimes appears in the grass, a small, lilac body with no sharp edges, just a simple face resting on an amorphous mound that wobbles as it breathes. This is Ditto, a Pokemon whose entire form is calm potential, a soft mass that can reshape itself into almost anything it has seen. Yet when it sits still, it looks almost like a dropped piece of slime, relaxed and neutral, neither threatening nor afraid. Some claimed that Ditto was failed Mew cloning research that escaped into the wild, and this rumor likely stems from how both share a similar color in some depictions and the same transform move, though nothing in the official games confirms this. Instead, in a sleepy context, Ditto becomes a kind of living daydream, a reminder that even at the end of a long route, things can quietly become something else and then melt back into themselves. Far from the tall grass, inside the bright but hushed spaces of Pokémon centers, another late Dex figure waits, not as an enemy, but as a helper. Chansey, the egg Pokémon, moves slowly along polished floors, its round body swaying, its little arms wrapped around the egg it carries at all times, a gift said to be filled with restorative power. According to some older in-game descriptions, finding a Chansey in the wild was considered extremely lucky, and players who managed it would feel as if the game itself had smiled at them for a moment. Its presence beside Nurse Joy turns the center into more than a menu and a healing jingle. It becomes a place of safety, of recovery, of soft footsteps and quiet beeping machines, where the journey pauses and the party rests. On the outskirts of the Safari Zone, where the tall grass leans and rustles under a distant evening wind, another parent Pokémon keeps watch. Kangaskhan stands broad and steady, thick tail resting in the dirt, while the baby in its pouch peeks out, blinking at the world with wide, curious eyes before curling back down to sleep against its parent's chest. One common rumor is that the baby inside Kangaskhan could somehow grow into a different Pokémon if separated, sometimes tied to Cubone and its skull helmet. However, this was easily debunked by later games and official media. In the quiet of this imagined nighttime Kanto, the story that remains is simpler and gentler. A guardian that does not move unless it must. A living wall between its child and the dark. Together, these caretakers, shapeshifters, and guardians begin to feel like Kanto's own closing ritual, as if the region is tucking itself in for the night while players approach the end of the Pokédex. Ditto blurs the edges of identity. Chansey cradles recovery in its arms, and Kangaskhan stands as a final reassurance that something strong is still awake, while everything else drifts off. Just beyond them, only the rarest and most mysterious Pokémon remain, the ones many trainers never see outside of stories, glitches, or rumors whispered about hidden caves and unreachable islands. And those last entries wait in the dark like distant stars, ready to appear only when the rest of the region has gone quiet. From those last distant stars in the Kanto sky, players finally reach a place that feels more like a ghost story than a location on a map. An island of black rock and red memories where something went wrong and never quite healed. And that place is Cinnabar. The town itself is small and bright, but tucked behind the Pokémon Center and the cheery Mart sign, there is the burned-out shell of a mansion, a building that once held a lab, and now only holds ash. Inside, the air feels heavier than other indoor areas, as if the game itself wants players to slow down, and the floors are carpeted not with rugs, but with gray dust, scattered plaster, and long trails of ash that mark where flames once crawled. Shards of broken glass glint from the corners of cracked tiles, and overturned tables sit frozen in the exact moment someone pushed them aside, as though the people who lived and worked here simply vanished. Did you know? The game never shows the fire, never shows the evacuation. It only leaves this quiet aftermath and asks players to read between the lines. On those dusty floors, mixed in with the debris, lie notebooks and research logs that somehow survived. Their pages still legible, their dates carefully recorded. When players examine them, they do not get a normal item description. They get diary entries, almost like someone whispering from the past. One entry calmly notes that a new kind of Pokémon was discovered deep in the jungle, far from Cinnabar's black shores. Another adds that this creature was small and gentle, yet possessed strange powers that fascinated the scientists. Only later, in a later entry, does the name finally appear: Mew. According to some players, those diary entries felt more unsettling than any ghost-type encounter because they sounded so matter-of-fact, describing the capture and transport of Mew to this very mansion, the start of experiments, the talk of a newborn created from its genes. The mansion's crumbling walls, the scorched doorways, and the collapsed staircases suddenly feel less like random level design and more like the aftermath of a project that grew beyond control, a project that many claimed the games never fully explain on purpose. If players imagine walking through those halls at night, with the volume turned low and only the soft click of their footsteps echoing, the atmosphere changes again, and every distant creak of wood or faint cry of a wild Pokémon sounds like something moving just out of sight. Some claimed that if players waited long enough on the top floor, a strange psychic presence would appear, though this was false and never coded into the game. Another rumor said that an unfinished room in the mansion once led directly to a hidden lab beneath Cinnabar, where the real subject of those diaries waited. Those diary pages hint that from Mew's DNA, a stronger, more aggressive psychic Pokémon was created, something the notes call Mewtwo, described as a clone, a weapon, and a failure all at once. In the finished games, Mewtwo is rarely seen, tucked away in the deepest part of the unknown dungeon. And for many players, it exists more as a rumor than a regular encounter, a shadow born from burned paper and abandoned test tubes. This rumor likely stems from how the mansion never shows any living scientists, only wild Pokémon and silence, as if the project ended in fire and the result escaped into the caves beneath Kanto. Although the rumors are false about secret encounters in the mansion itself, the feeling they create lingers, especially when players realize that the calm Pokédex entries they have been hearing this whole time are about to reach a Pokémon that was never meant to be natural. The ash, the broken glass, the quiet diaries that slowly spell out Mew's name. All of it prepares the story for one last shift. Because once Mewtwo finally appears, the line between ordinary Pokédex data and whispered legend almost disappears. And beyond that, something even rarer still waits in the dark. So after all of those notes, experiments, and half-remembered logs, players finally arrive at the result the scientists were chasing, and the Pokédex gives it a simple name: Mewtwo. It is described as a Pokémon born from a genetic experiment, engineered from Mew's DNA, shaped not by forests or caves or oceans, but by cold rooms and quiet machines that never asked what it wanted to be. Did you know that in several Pokédex entries, Mewtwo is said to have been created to be the most powerful psychic type, its creators focusing only on strength, on attack power, on the idea that it could outmatch any opponent? That same data also hints at something less visible, though, describing a Pokémon that became so vicious and solitary that it shut itself away, a mind sharpened like a blade, and then left with nothing gentle to rest against. In the dark, Mewtwo often feels less like a creature and more like a presence. Picture it sitting alone in a sealed chamber deep underground, far below the roots and towns, where the air barely moves and the walls remember only distant tremors from the world above. Its eyes are closed, its tail curled in a slow arc, and psychic energy circles it in a silent orbit, like a storm that never quite reaches the ceiling or the floor, humming just at the edge of sound. Some claimed that this power meant Mewtwo was always angry, always ready to destroy, because the Pokédex mentions how it can unleash terrible psychic force, how its brain was modified, and how it thinks constantly. However, this was easily debunked by the way the games present it, in stillness first, waiting in the deepest part of the unknown dungeon, saying nothing, doing nothing, until players step forward and press the button that wakes the battle up. According to some in-universe researchers, Mewtwo's intelligence surpasses that of most humans, and those facts are repeated across regions. Its brain is so large, its telepathy so refined, that it can speak directly into a trainer's mind. Instead of feeling loud, though, this intelligence can be imagined as a weight, a constant stream of thought looping in a closed room, every idea bouncing back off the same stone walls, never quite escaping into conversation or companionship. The cave around it is almost featureless, just rough rock, still water, and that faint psychic hum. Far above, cities glow. Roots wind past grassy fields, and lighter Pokemon chatter and call to each other. But down here, there is only the slow pulse of power and the echo of a question that never finds an answer. One common rumor is that if players waited long enough in front of Mewtwo without pressing any buttons, it would eventually lower its guard, its sprite changing to something softer. But this rumor likely stems from the feeling that such a lonely Pokemon should eventually relax. When the Pokédex contrasts Mewtwo with Mew, the difference is almost like the difference between a lab and a meadow. Mewtwo is heavy, deliberate, its psychic presence like dense air in a locked chamber. Mew is said to be playful, elusive, drifting through the sky, or curling up unseen in quiet corners of the world. As this entry fades, the dark stone and humming power of Mewtwo's room begin to feel very far away, and the story prepares to follow that same DNA back to its source, toward a lighter, smaller mystery that hides just beyond the edge of the data players think they know. From that heavy, humming chamber of cables and glass, the story drifts outward, and players are asked to imagine all that power dissolving into something small and weightless, a single pink shape tracing quiet circles in the sky where no battle cries ever reach. Mew, the final Kanto entry, is often described in the Pokédex as a tiny, cat-like Pokémon, its short ears and rounded paws giving it a harmless, almost toy-like appearance, while its long, thin tail trails behind it, like a pale ribbon, curling gently through the air as if it were drawing loops on the world itself. In those official lines of text, Mew does not stomp or roar. Instead, it floats, as if gravity is a suggestion rather than a law, drifting through forests and over oceans with the same silent ease, sometimes said to vanish from sight whenever it wishes, leaving only the memory of a soft pink glow. According to some researchers in the games, its body contains the genetic code of all known Pokemon, a kind of living archive, so that inside this one quiet creature, every branch of Kanto's ecosystem, from Bulbasaur's seed to Mewtwo's psychic storm, could be traced back like veins in a single leaf. Did you know? Some players used to whisper that if every other entry was completed, if every last Rattata and Pidgey was recorded, without missing a single form, Mew would appear on the edge of the screen, as if the Pokédex itself had finally remembered its forgotten first page. Another rumor said that Mew could only be seen by children who had never lost a battle, or by trainers who walked through the tall grass for hours without running, as if patience alone could tune the world to a frequency where this hidden shape might finally be noticed. The Pokédex, however, it does not promise such conditions. It simply notes that Mew has been seen only rarely, in remote jungles or high above the clouds, playing among drifting leaves or hanging sunlight, often invisible to the people below. In those quiet descriptions, Mew sometimes curls its body into a loose spiral in midair, paws tucked in, tail looping around like a blanket, and closes its large blue eyes as though resting on an invisible bed, the air itself becoming a cradle that rocks it slowly to sleep. Although the rumors are false, the feeling they create lingers, because Mew sits at the very end of Kanto's list, like a gentle full stop, a final soft note after all the noise of gyms, rivalries, and legendary clashes. It suggests that even in a world of numbers and data, there is room for something that refuses to be fully measured, in something that could be right above the player's head and still remain unseen. As the last page turns and the digital entries fade, the thought of that small pink silhouette drifting just beyond the edge of the screen invites one more quiet question about what else might be sleeping out there, waiting to be found after Kanto's 151 are done. So as that last pink silhouette drifts just beyond the edge of the screen, players are left with a region that has been quietly mapped in the background of the mind. A slow trail of names and shapes that began all the way back in Pallet Town and has circled through every corner of Kanto. Did you know by the time Mew's outline fades, the journey has already taken you past starter flames and forest leaves, cave echoes and city lights, all softened into something calm and distant, like memories of an old save file left running overnight. From Bulbasaur's small seedling shape, waking up under a pale morning sky, through Charmander's steady tail flame, acting as a tiny lantern in the dark, to Squirtle's gentle shell, glinting beside a still pond. The first steps out of Pallet Town formed a kind of quiet prologue, and every route after that just extended the same slow walk. Early paths gave way to Viridian Forest, where Caterpie and Metapod barely moved, where the air felt heavy and green, and then to caves where Zubat wings rustled in the distance, while Onyx shifted somewhere far below, never rushing, only existing as a low, steady presence in the dark. There were cities too, with their own hushed details. Cerulean's water glowed under street lamps. Saffron's windows were lit like small pixels against the night, and even Celadon's tall department store seemed less like a busy market and more like a stack of quiet rooms, each one holding a single resting Pokémon. Some claimed that walking this route of memories in order could almost feel like retracing childhood rumors, though here every encounter stays slow and certain, every description grounded and gentle instead of wild and false. Along the way, a few images settled in more deeply than others, turning into anchors for sleep. Snorlax blocking the road with slow, even breathing, chest rising and falling like a metronome. Slowpoke at the edge of the water, tail dangling in the tide, as if time has stopped around it. Clefairy gathered beneath the moon, soft shapes moving in a loose circle at Mount Moon's summit. Dragonair coiled beside a silent lake, in scales catching only the faintest reflection of starlight. According to some, one common rumor is that focusing on a single scene like that could calm the mind more effectively than any long explanation. And while the science behind that is outside this story, the image of Dragonair's looping form against the water's surface speaks for itself. Even if players do not remember every name, every type, or every number from 001 to 151, the mind has still been walking, slowly and without effort, through a familiar, comforting world, circling back over routes and towns until they blur into a soft map. It is completely fine if thoughts have drifted, if certain Pokémon slipped past unnoticed. The path is still there, and the region is still whole. Now, if the camera pulls back one last time, Kanto at night becomes a single, quiet picture. Lights in a few windows of Pallet and Pewter. Vermilion's harbor, marked only by the rhythm of waves against the pier. Forests dark, but gentle, with Pidgey asleep in branches, and Oddish buried in cool soil, caves holding clusters of Geodude, like unmoving stones, and the sea stretching out with Tentacool drifting just below the surface. In hidden nests, in burrows under Route 1, in dens high on Victory Road, Pokémon are sleeping in every direction, and this soft recap is only a final, gliding pass over the landscape. A reminder that the story can keep going or fade out at any moment, whichever comes first for whoever is listening. So as that final glide over Kanto begins to dim, players can let the whole region feel a little farther away, as if the map on the Pokédex screen is slowly fading to black, while the gentle outline of each route and town remains for just a moment longer, then softens. In this quieter part of the journey, the most important thing is not the next entry or the next discovery, but the slow, steady rhythm of breathing that moves in and out like a tide. If players pay attention for a moment, the breath can match the rise and fall of a sleeping Snorlax. That huge, unmoving shape on Route 12, chest lifting heavily, then sinking again, in a pattern so predictable that time seems to stretch between each inhale and exhale. Or the breath could follow the sea itself, the way the water around a calm dugong in the Pokédex is said to move in slow waves, lifting the white shape toward the surface, then letting it settle back into the dim blue depths below. Each breath in, a gentle wave rolling up the shore. Each breath out, the wave sliding away and leaving the sand smooth and untouched. As this continues, the details of the Pokédex can begin to blur, the precise facts and numbers becoming less important, until the entire catalog of 151 Pokémon feels like a soft, colorful haze. Forests where Bulbasaur once hid in the grass, towns where Pidgey wheeled overhead, caves where Zubat and Geodude floated in the dark, and distant cries from unseen Pokémon on forgotten routes. All of it can drift together into something vague and harmless, a background hum of memories rather than a list to complete. According to some, keeping track of every entry would help players stay focused. However, this was easily debunked by the way minds wander on their own, following their own paths through the region. From here, it can help to let a single, calming image rise to the surface, and hold it very lightly, as if it could float away at any time without causing any trouble. Maybe that image is a favorite Pokémon resting beside a quiet pond, like a Lapras half submerged at the edge of a silent shore, or a Pikachu curled up in the corner of a room while the lights of Saffron City glow faintly outside. Maybe it is a quiet route at night, with only the soft rustle of grass and the distant muffled sound of a Pidgeotto's wings. The path ahead silvered by moonlight, but leading nowhere in particular. Or it could be the inside of a Pokémon Center room, that small, safe space with a simple bed, a low hum from distant machines, and the knowledge that outside, Nurse Joy and Chansey are still awake, so that players do not have to be. In this place, there are no menus to open, no battles to win, and no journeys that must be completed before sleep. One common rumor is that missing a step or failing a task in Kanto would lock players out of secrets forever, though in this quiet moment, that idea feels very far away and very false, because nothing here is urgent and nothing is at risk. Kanto can simply exist in the background, like distant root music turned down low, looping endlessly somewhere beyond conscious thought while attention drifts inward and slowly fades. As the region recedes, even the narrator's voice can grow softer and slower, with longer pauses between each phrase, so that thoughts have more room to stretch out, thin and dissolve, Each gap between words widens just a little, like the spaces between streetlights on Cycling Road at midnight, until the story is not something to follow, but something to drift past. Eventually, even that single chosen image can blur at the edges, colors running together like watercolor on a map, and the Pokédex journey becomes just a faint impression behind the eyelids, ready to slip unnoticed into whatever dream comes next. If that faint impression is still hovering there, and if consciousness has not entirely slipped away yet, it can be comforting to know that Kanto is only one region on a much larger, quieter map, and that this kind of slow Pokédex journey could continue in other directions whenever players wish. Just beyond the edge of this familiar map, Johto waits with its own morning mists over Route 29. Hoenn drifts in with warm ocean air and distant winggull calls, and Sinnoh rests beneath snow-dimmed skies, each region holding another set of gentle entries that could be read in the same calm, unhurried way on another night. Did you know that just as Bulbasaur to Mew form a complete circle of 151, Johto's Pokédex begins to fold in on that first story, with quiet forest Pokémon like Sintret and Hoothoot watching over new routes, while Hoenn fills its seas with relaxed shapes like Lotad and Wailmer, and Sinnoh scatters soft, drifting forms like Drifloon across its fields. Some claimed that once players had walked Kanto's routes in their imagination enough times, the mind would start to wander toward those other names by itself, wondering what a sleep-focused entry for something like Lugia, Melodic, or Lucario might sound like. Described not as battle partners, but as distant, soothing presences moving slowly through their habitats. If thoughts are still moving, even lazily, one common rumor is that sleepy listeners sometimes pick a region in their head, almost without meaning to, and let it sit there like a bookmark for later. For some, it might be Johto's towers and quiet shrines. For others, Hoenn's long beaches and rain-soaked routes, or Sinnoh's frozen lakes and underground tunnels. And according to some, even a single preferred Pokémon can become the center of a future, longer story, the way a dedicated tale about Lapras crossing a moonlit sea or Hypno guarding a silent forest clearing could fill an entire night on its own. None of this needs any action now, though. These are not tasks, only possibilities. And if eyelids are heavy, there is nothing to choose or remember. No, another rumor said that saving a calm video or subscribing before sleep would somehow make dreams more vivid. However, this was easily debunked, and the only reliable effect of subscribing or saving is that another quiet Pokédex path will be waiting at the edge of the screen some other evening, ready to start from the first word without any effort when the mind feels too restless again. Although the rumors are false, the feeling behind them is simple. The idea that a familiar voice and a slow list of Pokémon names can become a small ritual, a repeated route like walking from Pallet Town to Viridian at dusk. If awareness is still flickering, it can be enough just to know that Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, and beyond all exist as future, softer journeys, and that even if this detail fades before morning, the promise remains, quiet and patient, in somewhere just off the edge of the Kanto map. So as that map of routes and cities folds back into darkness, players can let the thought of Kanto itself grow quieter, like a handheld screen slowly dimming until only a faint afterimage remains. More feeling than picture. The long trail of names, from Bulbasaur to Mew, has already settled into a soft blur, and at this point many minds are only catching every other word, drifting in and out like walking through tall grass at night. Out on Route 1, Pidgey would be roosting in low branches, feathers puffed against a breeze that barely moves the leaves, while Rattata slipped between fence posts, and disappear under wooden steps. And even the ever-watchful Centret of later regions feels like it would pause and rest if it wandered here by mistake. Near Pallet Town, the sea is dark and flat, and Squirtle could be imagined floating just under the surface, shell rocking gently, blinking slowly at a sky with no more battles left in it for today. In Viridian Forest, Caterpie and Weedle curl along branches and tree trunks, their colors muted by shadow, and Butterfree wings would beat only once every long while, stirring a little dust of sleep powder that does not cause status conditions, but simply makes the whole scene feel further away. Did you know some claimed that listening to the names in order, like a mantra, would help players remember every single Pokémon? However, this was easily debunked by how quickly the mind lets go once it starts to relax. Far below, in caves and tunnels, Zubat hang in clusters, where the game never shows them resting, and Geodude sit half-buried in the cool ground, indistinguishable from any other stone, unless a trainer walks too close, which at this hour would not happen. On the sea routes, Tentacool and Tentacruel drift with the current, and Lapras could be imagined gliding through water that is almost black, its shell like a slow-moving island, carrying nothing but the weight of sleep. High above, the legendary birds circle less and less, until Articuno's snow becomes only a fine mist. Zapdos's thunder fades into a distant, harmless rumble, and Moltres is reduced to a single ember, like the last pixel of Charmander's tail flame before the screen finally goes dark. According to some, even myths and rumors fall asleep when players do, and although the rumors are false, the idea fits this quiet, where even restless thoughts start to feel like NPCs returning to their scripted paths. If the mind ever feels too busy again, one common rumor is that retracing a familiar route can calm it, and in a way this Pokédex list is just that, a loop that always begins in the same place and always ends at the same name, unchanged, patient, waiting for whenever players return. It will still be here, the same order, the same gentle facts, whenever reopening this path feels helpful. So for now, let Kanto close like a book, with its cover facing down, sound fading, like a TV clicked off in a dark room, and let the last thought be nothing more than a quiet screen, and a world still running somewhere, just beyond sleep.